We want to get this meeting started. I know at least a few of you have missed supper. I want to get you out of here with information as soon as possible. So if you want to take a seat, now's a good time. There are plenty of seats over here. There's some seats in here. And I've got just a few things to say so we can get this meeting started. All right, good evening, and welcome to this second community meeting organized by Department of Water Resources to provide you with information and answer your questions about the Lake Oroville Spillways. My name is Mike Hardy, and I'm a principal with Kearns & West, and I'll be serving as the facilitator tonight. I am not a DWR employee, but more importantly, I am not a technical expert. I'm the wrong person to ask about the important technical questions that many of you I know have. And so we have many technical experts here, both up on this panel and around the room. I hope some of you have had an opportunity to speak with them if you got here earlier. And during the Q&A session, we're going to do everything we can to get you the answers to the questions that you're bringing. Just a couple of things here. Exit doors. Exit. 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 Okay? Know where the doors are. Restrooms. Some of you have these memorized. Ladies' room. Men's room. Either or in the back. So each of you has two choices. There is water at the seats in case you get thirsty. In addition, if you get a little bit peckish, there are some snacks in the back on the table. Please help yourself to those. All right, the first thing I'm going to do is just quickly run through what we're going to do this evening, and then I'm going to introduce the speakers, and we're going to get right into this presentation. Tonight's purpose is to address three basic questions. The first is what happened to the main and emergency spillways, February and March, and what was the response? The second question is recovery, what's happening today and what's happening in the future to repair the main and emergency spillways. The third is community topics. What are likely community impacts of the recovery and how can they be addressed? If you had time to walk around to the information stations earlier, you'll see that we have information stations that basically correspond to these three questions. I hope it was at least a start on answering some of your questions, but as we move through a very quick presentation, we're going to address each one of these three questions. All right, the agenda very quickly is I'm going to go through a couple of guidelines here. We're going to have a few introductions of some of your local elected officials. We're going to have a presentation that's mostly photographs, and we're going to move through it quickly because most of this meeting is about the questions you want to ask, the comments you want to make, and the information that DWR's team has for you. So that's what we're going to get to. We're going to spend the most time on tonight. 4 guidelines for tonight's meeting. The first is to be respectful of presenters and commenters, even if you disagree. The second that I'd ask is that you please follow our process for asking questions and commenting. On each of your chairs, there's a comment card and there's a speaker card. The speaker cards are the small ones, the comment cards are the larger ones. If you would like to speak this evening, we ask that you fill out a speaker card and hand it to my colleague Sam, who is standing right there waving the speaker cards that he has received. You can do a couple of things. If you would like to ask your question yourself, just write your name down so I can read it and let me know you're going to ask a question, and when we get to you, I'll just call your name and you can come up to the microphone and ask your question. If you would like me to read your question out loud and get an answer, I'm happy to do that as well, as long as I can read it. Read your handwriting, okay? So whatever you'd like to do, you can just write on the card, please read my question aloud, and we're happy to do that as well. If you would like to submit a written comment to DWR this evening, that's what the comment form is for. Please write your comment, and there is a plastic box over on the table, right over there, and you can put your comment form in there. All right? There are also extra speaker cards over there. There are extra comment cards over there. So we're going to use the card system, and I appreciate your willingness to do that. Number 3, this is very important. Please honor the time so that everyone has a chance to speak. The limit on comments or questions is 3 minutes. What we're going to do is let you know if you're commenting or asking a question when you are approaching the 3-minute limit. Okay, we'll show you when you've got 30 seconds left, and we'll show you when you're finished. We may show you when you have a minute, but we ask you to please respect the time, because that will allow you to get as many people as possible within yeah. Is this one on? Yeah, this one. Ouch. That's really on. Okay, and then the last guideline, this one just now was fairly eventful. Turn off and silence your cell phones. We did have a few phones going off the other night, and if you can turn your phones off, it would be really helpful. Okay, that's it for the guidelines. All right. I am now going to introduce 2 people who are going to be important in terms of responding this evening. The first is the Chief Deputy Director from the Department of Water Resources, Cindy Messer, and the Deputy Director for Statewide Emergency Preparedness and Security, Christy Jones. So I'm going to give you the microphone and let you introduce your team.
Okay. Can everyone, ooh, that is bright. Can everyone hear me okay? I tend to have a soft voice, so let me know. Okay, so first of all, let me introduce the folks at the table. And let me say, I am going to cheat tonight and use my notes. These are notes that I wrote up. I'm a little bit nervous. I don't often get to talk to a group this large, so bear with me this evening as I get through this sort of the opening piece of this. So Christy Jones, you now all have been introduced to. Next to her is Dave Gutierrez, and Dave is one of our technical advisors. He comes with a vast amount of experience on dam safeties, and he's working with the department as we move through the response and recovery efforts. Next to him is Aaron Mellon, who is with the California Natural Resources Agency, which is the agency that provides oversight for DWR. Aaron is heading up our communications program. So she's going to be, I'm sure has already met quite a few folks in the room, and helping to answer some of the questions related to communications as we move forward. And then next to Aaron is Gina House, who is with our Oroville Field Division. And Gina is under this particular task with the Oroville Response and Recovery. She was our incident commander during the very first few weeks after the emergency occurred. She took the night shift on that. Moving forward, she is working as a liaison to support the current incident command team, and she is our superintendent for the power plant at the Oroville Field Division. So that's her expertise. And next to her, I got to make sure I keep all the faces straight here, is Eric C., who's also up here at the Oroville Field Division. Many of you probably know Eric or have seen his name. He is the supervisor, make sure I get this correctly here, the program manager for our license coordination branch. And Eric has been working quite a bit on a lot of our environmental compliance type tasks related to the Oroville response and recovery effort. And then we have Joe Royer in the green shirt here almost at the end of the table. And Joe is working on our spillway repair project management team, one of our engineers in our division of engineering. That's his normal job, but here in Oroville right now, he's helping to coordinate the design and construction of the project as we move forward. So we have tonight brought this panel together. We also have other folks I think you've talked to in the room here that bring in a vast amount of expertise in all these different areas, whether it's related to the emergency response or the recovery moving forward or communications. So, and then last but certainly not least, at the very end of the table is Lieutenant Bell from the Butte County Sheriff's Office. And I wanted to thank you very much for being with us this evening. We appreciate it. And perhaps now is a good time to have Lieutenant Bell say a few words. Uh-oh. Do you want this one?
There we go. It was already on. Okay. Well, we got to remember that, right? I remember these things at the last meeting took a few seconds to come on, and I start talking too soon, and nobody hears you. So, thank you for coming. Sheriff Honey wanted me to convey his apologies that he's unable to be here tonight. He had an appointment that he wasn't able to break, but wanted me to make a quick comment before we got going here. Which was, we want to make everyone here, the public, sure that Sheriff Honey, the Sheriff's Office, is still working closely with DWR. We still attend all the meetings that we had from the very beginning. The Sheriff Honey is shoulder to shoulder with all the heads at DWR, but he wanted me to convey that point to all of you, just to reassure everybody that we are still doing what we've been doing. There we go. It's going in now. Okay, this is a wonderful turnout. Thank you for coming, and we can get going.
Okay, great. Thank you, Lieutenant Bell. So a couple more acknowledgments and introductions before we kind of move into some of the opening remarks. We do have some of our elected officials here with us this evening, and I'd like to introduce them. We have Senator Nielsen, who I think is sitting over here kind of in the middle. Thank you, Senator, for being here this evening. And if you gentlemen are okay, I'll run through my short list, and then I know I want to offer you the opportunity to say a few words, and we'll run a microphone over to you. So I'd also like to acknowledge Assemblymember Gallagher, who is with us this evening. And I wanted to acknowledge a couple of their staff members. Sadie Foster, who is with the Senator, and Curtis Grima, who is with the Assemblymember Gallagher, who came a little early tonight and talked with a few of us. We appreciate that they made the trip here and had some time to talk through a few things with us. Mike Ramsey is also here, the District Attorney for Butte County. There he is. Mr. Ramsey. Thank you for being here. And then we had an opportunity to talk to a couple of other gentlemen who couldn't stay for the meeting tonight, but I did want to acknowledge they were here and we had some good engagement with them, and they had some great questions for us. Bo Shepard and Roger Firth from the City of Biggs. I know they're city council members with the City of Biggs. They had to leave, unfortunately, but we appreciate that they were here with us for a while. So with that, I think perhaps I want to offer an opportunity for a few words from the Senator and the Assembly member.
Well, good evening, folks, and this is but the beginning for you here of many, many opportunities to get better informed. That's what James and my mission is, to make sure all the citizens affected have their ample opportunity to know as much as they possibly can, ask as many questions as they possibly can, and have those questions answered. Not even all tonight, That's the ongoing process. There will be more such meetings as this that the department will be conducting. A week ago, the Senate Natural Resources Committee had its first hearing oversight in the Capitol. Assemblyman Gallagher will be doing the similar thing in the Assembly side, and in fact, there will be several of these kinds of hearings in the Capitol to ferret more and more information out. The bottom line goal is to ensure the public is protected, to ensure the integrity of the dam is restored to state-of-the-art condition, that we do not have to raise these concerns again in the future. And whatever eventualities caused the difficulties, those are repaired such that our minds are more at ease and at peace. This is a beautiful thing. The State Water Project has meant so much to the state of California, but maybe not as much to some in the north as it should. We'll also be looking into that. James and I really appreciate that so many of you show up here tonight, that the department will conduct and be kinds of meetings in the community. It's an ongoing process, ladies and gentlemen. And to use an old term from the farm, it's got to be done right. James Gallagher.
All right, well, thank you. First of all, I'm going to try and be very brief because this is about you guys tonight. First of all, thank you everybody for coming out tonight. Really appreciate everybody being here, taking time away from your family, from things that you have to do to come out and have this conversation, because it's something that is desperately needed and something that Senator Nielsen and I have really pushed for. I also want to let you know that, I went through this with you. My family, we were evacuated from Yuba City. And I know probably everybody in this room, you were evacuated as well. And we went through the fear, we went through the questions, we went through all the emotions that went through that evacuation. And as your representative, I've tried to channel all of that as I communicate with people at the Department of Water Resources, with Governor Jerry Brown and the administration. And what I've gotten from all of you is that, number one, we need to make sure that this dam is safe and that people are protected, that the number one priority is protecting people that live in this community right here and that have lived with the burden. This project has a great benefit for all the state, but there's a great burden that's shouldered by our communities alone. And because of that, we want to ensure that this place is safe. It's safe for our communities, safe for our families. We want to ensure transparency about what's going on. We want questions answered no matter where they lead. And finally, we want things to change because the status quo is not working. Now, I want to say that I want to thank the Department of Water Resources for being here tonight and for bringing a lot of people here, a lot of technical knowledge to get questions answered, because I know you have a lot of questions and they need to be answered. And I want to thank them for releasing the Board of Consultants reports. We had a talk about that, wanted to make sure that those were released to the public so that we can see what people are saying about the dam and how we're addressing the deficiencies. That's important. We want to know how this is being addressed so it doesn't happen again. And there's been a lot of work that's been done. You've seen that. A lot of people coming up here doing a whole lot of work, doing over, days and nights making sure this is safe. And we have to applaud all those people who've been involved in making that effort. But going forward, we want to know that this is going to be safe and that we can be assured that the promises made to Oroville are fulfilled. And thank you. And I will be continuing to push on that. Senator Nielsen will be pushing on that, and we are continuing a very good conversation, I would say, that we've been having with Department of Water Resources on just that point. And so tonight, this is about getting your questions answered directly so that you get to talk directly to them. Not through me or through anybody else, but you get to talk directly and get answers directly. So thank you for being here tonight, and let's continue this conversation and let's move forward. Thank you.
Let me keep going? Okay. Thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate the opening comments and the remarks. I was remiss, first of all, in not saying thank you to all of you for being here this evening, for giving up your time this evening with your family, your free time, your relaxation time. We do appreciate that you all came out for this meeting. The other thing that I would like to say on behalf of DWR is that we are sorry. We are very, very sorry that, I didn't go through this, but, you know, for the disruption in your lives, for the fear and the anger and the uncertainty that I believe you have lived with for the last several months, for all of the heartache and the stress that you went through during the emergency and the evacuation that followed that incident. Thank you. I will say that many of us can never fully walk in your shoes, so to speak, but we've watched and we've worried as this has all unfolded. We've been with our colleagues and our coworkers who work up here, work in the surrounding communities, live up here, and watched them go through this, watched the stress that they've dealt with as they worried about getting themselves out, worried about their loved ones, and making sure they got out safely. So I wanted to start this evening by acknowledging that, and again, thanking you as a community for your cooperation during the event, during the evacuation, and again, a big thank you to the Sheriff's Office and the local community agencies that worked with us through all of this and will continue to work with us as we all move through this together. So, having said that, I do have a couple of points I'd like to make just about this evening. I think they echo very much what the Senator and the Assembly member said this evening. And again, I'm going to cheat a little bit because I don't want to miss anything as I go through these points. So we are here tonight, first and foremost, to hear from all of you. We want to hear your questions. We want to hear your concerns, and we also want to hear suggestions as we go through the information that Mike set up. What can we be doing to make communication better, to make the information flow as we move along? So that's first. I am going to ask your indulgence a little bit to let us get through the presentation because I think there's some questions that have been coming up. You know, they're kind of becoming our frequently asked questions, big concerns that we want to at least run through once, may answer some of your questions, may generate new questions, and that is great. Once we get to the Q&A session, let's run through those. We can run through them a little deeper if we need to. And some of those items include, what is the green spot on the dam? What is the Board of Consultants? What is their role? What are they doing? What is this forensics team that maybe you've heard of? What is their role? What are they doing? What can you all expect from that process? Let's talk a bit about the inspection schedule and those reports. Let's talk about communications and how we get information out to you and what those options might be and how do we get communication back from you. So we're going to cover those in the presentation. I'm asking for a little indulgence to go through PowerPoint. Not my favorite way to do things, but I think it'll help tee up our discussion for the evening as we move along. Just a couple more points. We will make the repairs that are needed to the spillways by November 1st of this year, 2017. Our goal is to make sure that no matter what comes our way, weather-wise, in this upcoming winter, we are ready for that. And because public safety is our #1 goal, that is our commitment, that is what we must do, and we will do it. So I wanted to say that this evening, that November 1st is our date for those repairs. We're committed to working with this community, the other communities, as we move through these public meetings and other meetings and discussions that we're going to have in the upcoming months. Our hope is for these types of meetings is that we can begin to build some degree of trust with the community. I know that's going to be a big ask on our part, but it is our hope and it's our goal for doing this type of outreach. We also want to be, as the department, very aware and very proactive of what kind of impacts might be associated with the construction that's going to happen over the next several months as we repair the spillways. You know, we recognize there's local infrastructure, the roads, there's traffic concerns. We know the local economy and potentially impacts to that, whether it's recreation, whether it's local businesses. So we want to have that dialogue. We want to be proactive to try to minimize those impacts. So that's another thing I'd like to, if we could, talk about this evening. If there are questions around that, we can certainly follow up if we need to and definitely have more discussions around those. We are committed to providing information to this community, to the surrounding communities, to others who need and want this information as we move along, transitioning from emergency response to recovery. We want to keep the dialogue going. Working through the issues that come up, looking for solutions as we move along. I think I've said it once, I'm going to say it again. Public safety, public security is our #1 goal through this whole process. But transparency is also our goal, and I know that was a word that's been mentioned already this evening. That is one of our primary goals, but I'm going to be very upfront here. It's going to be a balancing act, and I know there's information that's already been put out that's been redacted or blacked out. There will be more very sensitive and confidential information down the road that we have to decide whether we release or not. But it is our goal to get as much information as we can out in a timely manner in as many different ways as we can. But I know it's not going to be easy, and I know we will have this discussion again as we move on. But I want to acknowledge that. And lastly, I wanted to say that we are committed to holding more of these meetings as we go through the next several months. And I know we've been asked to come to other venues as well. Maybe it's city council meetings, other venues like that. We are committed to doing that, and we want to keep the dialogue open. We want to stay connected. We want to keep providing information as we develop it, as we move through the recovery, repairs, reconstruction phase. So just again, want to put that out there. That is our commitment. We fully expect to see many of you again, if not several times, from this evening. And I want to take a breath for one, but pause for a minute here to say that, and I think I will be echoing what the senator said, we are going to try our darndest this evening to answer all of your questions. I do not expect that we will be able to answer every single one of them. So I am committing, and I know Director Croyle, who could not be here this evening, and I apologize for that. He's been called back to Washington, D.C. He does send his apologies. But we are committed to follow through and to follow up with whatever information we cannot provide on the spot tonight. We want to provide facts. We want to provide thorough responses. We may not have that all on hand tonight, but it is our commitment to get back to you. We'll do summaries of these meetings. We'll do frequently asked questions. We'll post comments, I believe, that we get and the answers to those, and we'll be back. So that I want to put that out there, and I'm on camera, so I mean it. Okay, and I think maybe with that, I just again want to say, please ask your questions. Definitely voice your concerns, and as we move along, if you have any suggestions, we really, really want to hear that. We are in the mode of making these meetings effective, making them better as we go along, same with the information flow. And I think with that, we're going to shift into the presentation that I mentioned, and Christy Jones is going to go ahead and take the reins from here. So thank you.
Good evening. Is this on? I guess it is. My name is Christy Jones. I am the Deputy Director of the Security and Emergency Management Program at the Department of Water Resources. So we have been in this since day one. We have been feeling with you and going through the stress and the anger and the fear that has occurred. And so we want to try and answer some of those questions. I know there's a lot of questions. We didn't communicate as well as we should have at the very beginning of this, and we are trying to change that. And so tonight is one of those nights that we are trying to reach out to you face to face to give you a chance to ask those questions. I'm going to run through a quick presentation to try and answer some of those questions in advance. And so the first part of this obviously was the response, which you all know very well. It was when we had to evacuate. This is the dam, and I just wanted to point out there's a few nomenclature things. I don't know if the PowerPoint, can everybody see the laser on here? We have the emergency spillway, which everybody knows about, to the right-hand side of the dam. We have our flood control spillway, which was the one that failed first. We have our actual dam off to the side. It is safe and sound. There is nothing wrong with it. I actually want to address the green spot question. I know that there's a lot of people that have questions on that green spot. In the back, in the Oroville Spillways community topics, we have big pictures. We have pictures when this dam was constructed. It has the green spot on there. It is a rainfall green spot. It is when rain falls, the grass grows. One thing that we were talking about as we drove up here today, we were looking at the median and the highway. Some parts are green and some parts are brown. And there's nothing more to say about that except for maybe it's the soil consistency or what seeds have been shown there. So it is safe and sound. There is no leak in this dam. This is what we dealt with on February 7th when we turned off the spillway. We had a hole, and on pictures it doesn't look very big. People asked us, why didn't we fix this? We had a very big storm coming in 2 days. We did not have very much time. We did not have a lot of access to the place where this hole was. And when we sent in people on February 8th, I don't know if you can see this, but there's a person in here, in that hole. And one thing that we kind of talked about before we got up here in this presentation, if you look at this hall that you're sitting in right now, this is actually smaller than the hole that we were working with in the flood control outlet. I know that's really hard to believe. It was hard for us to believe as we were seeing these pictures, but as we saw those people go down into the hole, we realized that we had a very serious problem on our hands, as you all well know. We were balancing a lot of choices as this went through. We have our upper outlet, which is our gated control spillway. We were lucky, the upper chute of that gated control spillway held. The bottom obviously deteriorated. The only other outlet that we have that's controlled is our Hyatt power plant, which is shown here. Our Hyatt power plant only has a 13,000 CFS capacity outlet. That's very small. We had 196,000 CFS come in on February 9th. We were trying to balance the risk. Our Hyatt power plant also does not work when power is not connected to it, when the power lines are not connected to it. We had erosion happening on the dam during that part where the spillway was also eroding, and the hill was eroding back upwards towards our power lines. If we had lost the power lines, we would have lost the Hyatt power plant ability to release water. So we were trying to balance all of these risks. And this was also the wettest year on record in 105 years, 110 years. So we were dealing with the biggest storm we had seen since 1997. And it was quite big. And then of course there was the emergency spillway. We did not want to use the emergency spillway. We never want to use the emergency spillway again. But We did, and now we have to correct the problems that are there. So as you know, the flows began over the emergency spillway. We had to increase flows through the flood control outlet because the erosion started on the emergency spillway. We were very worried about losing that. There's lots of questions about inundation maps. During this process, we had an inundation map for a sunny day dam failure, but we didn't have an inundation map for the emergency spillway failure. So we created them. I have them on our computer today. We were hoping to have them printed out in the back with the rest of the evacuation maps. We are happy to give them to you. We are ready to give you the information that you want and need to see. So as we increased, obviously the evacuation orders occurred. It was in conjunction. It was a very difficult decision to make with the sheriff. And the sheriff, in the end, decided that the triggers were high enough that we had to order the evacuations. And that was a very rough night. As you can, this is a smaller version of the emergency spillway inundation map that we are happy to share with you. And then, of course, there was saving of Hyatt Power Plant. We had a lot of water that was, as all the debris came down off the spillway, the diversion pool downstream of the spillway started increasing its water level, and Hyatt Power Plant was in jeopardy of flooding, and it did flood. We lost some electrical control outlets for the river valve outlets, which is the non-turbine outlets of the Hyatt Power Plant. So that's the 4,000 CFS, the river valve outlets that some of you have questions about. We were not able to operate them during this because they flooded and the controls were deteriorated, so we had to replace those. We are testing and commissioning them tomorrow, so we expect those river valve outlet system to be back up again as of tomorrow. So what is happening as we move forward? A lot of you have questions on how are we going to rebuild so that by November 1st, this next flood season and the following flood seasons to come, we keep you safe, because that is our #1 priority, is public safety. And so what we are doing is we are rebuilding part of the upper chute to make it stronger, to build it to the regulations of today. And we are building a lower chute down here further that will carry 100,000 CFS safely down into the diversion dam. We are also going to be shoring up, so this is the upper chute as you see it, and then we will be putting concrete down into the lower chute. The lower chute will be 1,400 feet, and I think I forget the amount of roller compacted concrete, but it's a lot of concrete. In our emergency spillway, we are also buffering that. That's why we're all here today. We are going to be digging down below the emergency spillway. This is the left-hand side, as you're looking at it, is the emergency spillway in this picture. We are going to be digging down to the bedrock and putting in a cutoff wall. What that does is when water flows over the emergency spillway and the erosion starts coming back up, the cutoff wall will stop that erosion from coming. And in between this cutoff wall and the emergency spillway, we will be placing more roller compacted concrete in between, so that also does not erode as well. Some people have asked how much this has cost. We have spent about $274 million to date in our response operations, and we just awarded a contract for $275 million for this recovery operation. We plan to be operational by November 1st to get you through the flood season. Public safety is our #1 priority. And this is a schedule. I think we have a bigger version of it over in our Oroville Spillways recovery. And so some of the impacts, we realize that this has impacted you already, and it will continue to impact you as we go through the construction. So we have a roads task force. They are here tonight to answer your questions on what haul routes are we planning to use, how are we planning to work with the traffic. We've already started some repairs. We've done some repairs on Canyon Drive and Cherokee Road. We were able to stop construction long enough for the wildflower to occur. And we just want to make sure that we're communicating with you guys enough so that you know what is happening before it happens. And then we're also aware that this is going to impact the recreation, and we have groups that are working on that to make sure that we impact you as least as we can. And so is this yours? Okay. One thing I forgot to mention was the Board of Consultants. So Oroville Dam, we are regulated by two agencies, the Division of Safety of Dams and the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. So it's a state and a federal agency that regulate our dam safety. As we go through our design of this new spillway, we have a board of consultants, an independent board of consultants that has been brought on that oversees both FERC, DSOD, and DWR as we design these to make sure that it is up to the standards of today and to make sure that we are doing it right. And the forensics team is also helping with us on that. The forensics team are the people who are going out and are on the spillway right now and looking through the reports and looking through the inspections and making sure they're determining what happened here. We don't know what caused this problem. So we don't want to make this problem again. And that is why we have the forensics team, so that they can give us some ideas of how this occurred and what we can do to not have it happen in the future. And also the inspection schedules, I know there's been some questions on that. And the inspection schedules happen twice a year by that FERC that I talked about, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, and the Division Safety of Dams, DSOD. The last two inspections were May 2016 for FERC and August 2016 for DSOD, just before the flood season occurred. So I'm hoping that that answered some of your questions. We are here to answer more of your questions. And I just want to say again how sorry we are to be here with you, that we have to be in this situation, because our hearts are with you.
There we go. So we're quickly going to get into your questions and comments now. This is just a list of some of the outreach and engagement activities that are going on, and I think what you can take away is there will be more. And if you have ideas for what the department can do to engage with you more effectively, please let us know. You can come find me and tell me what we can do if there's something more, some better way to reach you or your community or a group that you're part of. So that's one. All right, how to comment. I reviewed this really quickly. I just want to go over it again. I've got 30 speaker cards up here. Don't let that deter you if you'd like to be 31. I want to hear from everybody tonight. So every speaker, whether you're asking a question or a comment, we ask that you honor the 3-minute time limit. My colleague Zach is sitting right up front here. He's got his hand up, and he will let you know when you are approaching the end of your 3-minute time limit. All right? It's helpful if you let us know who you are, and if you're representing an organization, that's also helpful as well. And again, some people ask me to read their questions or comments, and some people are going to read their own, so we'll figure that out. All right. What I don't want to do is create a line at the microphone. That's the whole purpose for this. So I'm going to call out 2 names. The first person can come up to the microphone if that's what you'd like to do, and the next person's on deck. And I'll just keep working it that way so that people don't have to stand in line. And basically it works is it's the rule of 1. 1 person, 1 question, 1 comment. Okay? And please don't loan or give away your time to someone else. We ask you to hold on to your time and use it. We don't want people accumulating time. All right. So I'm just going to move this back here, and I am going to start with the first card that I have. Reggie Elizabeth Graywolf, I've got your card. Would you like it back?
Mike. Good evening. I'm the Director of Empower Disabled American Women and Children with Northern California. I'm also a professional responder here in California in Oroville. I love Oroville. I moved here from Sacramento. My question is, why did you, the water company, leave us in such a hurry and not tell us? I worked for the radio stations at the time, along with Facebook. My page is Reggie Elizabeth Graywolf. I am the Director of Empower Disabled American Women and Children. I am disabled, and where I live in Olive Hill Community Senior Park is right around the corner from Oroville Hospital. Had $5 in my pocket and nowhere to go, like everybody else. Why should I believe you that you're going to Cindy? Go ahead and fix the spillway by November 1st without it being a papier-mâché event.
Is there another part to your question, Reggie? No? Okay. So
I'm
Cindy...
asking Cindy, please.
There's a little bit of a delay when they come on.
Okay.
Yeah,
Oh,
there
here we
you
go. Okay. Well, thank you, Ms. Graywolf, for your comment. I do appreciate it. I know we had a chance to hear from you as well last week. And I think, you know, all I can do at this point in time is, and I've done it, we have done it, is we will get the spillways repaired by November 1st, and they will be repaired using the best technology, the latest and greatest information, the best standards for spillway construction and safety, and we will do that by November 1st so we can weather whatever comes our way next winter and not have to have a repeat of what happened this year.
Thank you, I hope so, because on my Facebook page is the 17 minutes of right on this levee, 2 days before the spillway incident, showing a dead horse going by, a house collapsing or a building collapsing, with people and their children believing you guys that we were safe. I don't want our community going through that again.
Lieutenant Bell, did you want to offer your perspective?
Hello.
Yes.
Okay, there we go. And we spoke today again, right? And one of the things that I mentioned was the immediacy of the evacuation. That came on, no pun intended, like a storm. It was something that came up, and within a matter of a handful of minutes, we were in evacuation mode. And that was hard on all of you, number one, on all of us, everybody sitting up here, because that was a very stressful thing. And that was something that happened with this, is we get the information and we have to act on it. Sheriff Honey pulled the trigger on it pretty quick, and thank goodness he did. But in that situation, it came about pretty fast. So, you know, ideally in a perfect world, we like to give warnings, evacuation warnings, get prepared. Okay, now we're about to tell you you're going to evacuate. That's in a perfect world. Just doesn't always happen. You know, we deal with the evacuations a lot in the fires, and sometimes, a lot of times, the same thing is we need to get people out fast. We want to give warnings, but sometimes we can't.
Okay. So Don, I know you're up next. Don Blake, you're up number 2. And on deck is Vince Brown. Do you need your card?
Nope. I'm Don Blake from Oroville, and I suppose I need to direct this to Ms. Messner, since it appears that you're the person in charge here in the absence of Mr. Croyle. You started off commenting that your department wants to regain trust of the people here in Oroville, and I'm going to suggest that your department quit making false statements in public if you want to be believed. Now back to my comment, my question. Several days ago, I came across a news story from the LA Times. The thrust of the story was that people in Los Angeles feared that their school children would not have enough water to drink at school because Lake Oroville was down to 690 feet with no rain in sight. The story was printed in January of 2016. Now, the complaint was obviously foolish, but it did point out a reality. Spillway wasn't used in 2016, 2015, or 2014. Water exports to LA were cut way back. LA still survived, and their children had water to drink. The key issue to our safety while the spillway is being rebuilt, and nobody believes it's going to be rebuilt by November 1st, but the key issue is lake level management. Traditionally, your department has managed the lake in tandem to plans for water exports. Things, however, this year are different. Even the water contractors recognize this fact. Curtis Creel of the Kern County Water Agency told the Sacramento Bee on March 31st that the lake could be held several thousand acre-feet lower this year for safety reasons. He said that the spring runoff would have to be dumped into the river to flow to the Pacific because the south of the Delta reservoirs were full right now, and that's going on right now. And that's unfortunate. But as Director Croyle said, famously told the Enterprise Record on March 22nd, stuff happens. In any event, Creel also said he hoped to get water deliveries at the end of the summer. If that didn't happen, he said, the Kern County Water Agency could deal with it. The concern for the water contractors is water shipments next year, 2018, not this year. Quote, we have enough water for this year. It's next year that we're concerned with, said Cindy Cow of the Santa Clara Valley Water District in her March 31st interview with the
Don, you're up against 3 minutes.
And I'm getting to it. Quote,
how fast?
There's tremendous value in having water in storage, said Devin Updehay, Chief of Water Resources for Metropolitan Water District. We don't know what 2018 will bring. Updehay made these comments to the Bee on March 31st. If the water contractors already accept the fact that Lake Oroville will have to be substantially lowered and water exports will have to be reduced for safety reasons during the construction of the new spillway, why won't DWR recognize that as well? So
is that your question?
I'm asking you right now on behalf of Mr. Croyle to make a commitment to draw the lake level by the end of September to a safe level, say half full. It's also time that DWR makes a commitment to manage the lake through next fall, winter, and spring in such a fashion that water does not reach the level of the spillway gates until the spillway is fully repaired and functional. So I'm asking you right now, are you willing to make those kind of commitments?
So that's your question? Don, are you finished?
I'm getting to it.
Don, we have a 3-minute limit so that we can hear from people in the audience.
Are you going to make that commitment?
Don.
Are you going to make that commitment?
So what's the commitment you're asking for, Don?
Did you listen?
It was a long question, so what's the commitment you're asking for?
Are you willing to make a commitment to draw down the lake level by the end of September to a safe level, say half full, and further commit to manage that lake level through next fall, winter, and spring, such that water does not reach the spillway gates and until they're fully repaired?
Okay, that's your question.
Okay, so Mr. Blake, I cannot make a specific commitment right now.
Why not?
Well, let me finish. What we are doing and we will continue to do is we are managing day by day, the lake level, the whole operations. We're looking at snow melt, we're looking at the forecasts, we're looking at the Hyatt power plant capacity, and we are gonna keep doing that through the spring, through the summer. Public safety is number one, and that will always be, so we will manage to that as we go through construction. But that is how we're going to do this. We are going to be focused on the Balance Act. I also want to recognize we have to balance with recreation and the other needs around the lake as we move through the summer season and as we move through the fall and the construction and looking to public safety.
Your number one priority is public safety. I don't like having my life threatened. 180,000 other people don't like their lives threatened. And you folks have a responsibility to keep that lake at a safe level and not put our lives in danger again.
Amen.
Thanks, Don. So you're Vince? Yes. Did you want to add something, Dave?
You want to add on?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So that's a great question. I appreciate that, Mr. Blake. And let's kind of talk a little bit more about the operation of the lake and how we're going to do that. So first of all, we got to make sure what we're balancing. So remember, one of the most important things that we're actually going to do here is actually repair the spillway. And in order to repair the spillway, the most important aspect of that is actually a large construction window. And so kind of what I mean by that is we want to get in there as soon as we can, and we want to start fixing that spillway as soon as we can. But we have to balance that with the safety of the lake. We have to balance that with the safety of the lake. We know that we have a large snowpack up there. That snowpack's going to come through the reservoir. And we need to be able to operate that so that we're at a safe level, not only after November, but we want to do that through the entire summer, right? And so what we have to do is we have to get a good understanding of the snowpack. We got to have a good understanding of how that snowpack's coming through. We have to close the gate. We're going to open it one more time, then we're going to close the gate for the summer for the sole purpose of making sure that we've got a large construction window. And we want to make sure that we could get that flow through the reservoir. And we can do that with the powerhouse. So the powerhouse is capable of, actually it's got a capacity of 13,000? Capacity of 13,000 CFS. That equates to maybe 23,000 acre-feet. We've got a river valve, another 4,000 CFS. So we know that we're not going to generally get that much water coming in during a snow melt. So we got to pay attention to that. We're actually got an analysis almost complete on that. We've got an independent analysis from the Corps of Engineers to check our numbers to make sure that we got it right. And it's all about when do you actually close the gate, how much water do you get out through the summer, but most importantly, remember, it all goes back to that construction window. That's one of the most important things. That's actually the biggest risk factor. That's actually the biggest and most important thing that we do, is have a large construction window open so we can actually get in there right away and start fixing the spillway. So we're going to do that, and then we're going to look at other issues as well. We got a little bit of time to actually look at that. As we draw the reservoir down, how low do we want to get to that reservoir to get us prepared for next November? We could do that, and I think we need to come back and have some discussions on that. So that's certainly a fair question. Give us some time to kind of come back and let's get into the details of that. We're right in the middle of analyzing that, so I think we can definitely get a common understanding of what the issue is and then address it over the next couple of weeks. But right now, the answer is we got to figure out when to close that gate, and I think it's going to be the end of May, because we're able to actually look at where the snow melt is, how it's going to come through the reservoir, and how we're going to get it out through the reservoir, and make sure that that reservoir doesn't get too high while that happens.
Okay, thanks, Dave. Mr. Brown. And up next is Dario Martinez.
Yes, my name is Vince Brown. I'm a local fisherman, and I understand that you people have filled up some ponds that belong to us. And when you filled them up and you ran out of room to put any more material, you built this massive mountain off of Cherokee Road when you could have put all that fill there in the first place and never destroyed that property. And then we got all these ponds downstream that have got blown out, especially the handicap pond that's not been kept up. Are you going to take care of that? Are you going to repair that? Are you going to replace the fish that you killed when you put all that fill in there instead of seining those fish out and doing it humanely. And also the road that you've built on Burma Road is going right through an archaeologically sensitive area, and I don't think the Native Americans appreciate that. And I think you've opened up a can of worms there. You say that you've had that all checked out and that you've marked off areas to not touch that. And I know for a personal fact that that's untrue.
So there's two parts to that question. Eric, did you want to address the first part? Or the second?
Hello? Okay, good. Thank you for your comments. I know exactly the pond you're talking about. They're off of Burma Road, and it's unfortunate, but it was the only place they were able to find a spot large enough to be able to use the excavator to be able to unload the material out of the barges that were being taken down. So that was a location that was going to work for the construction operation that was going on at the time. But we have every intention to remove that material that we put in that pond and restore the pond completely. In fact, we're going to do some enhancements to the pond as well to restore the habitat that was there. So, you know, we took measurements before we put the fill in the pond, and so we have every intention to do that. Regarding the Native American site there, I'm very well aware of that site. We have, from the very beginning of this, been very aware and been very cautious about where all of our construction activities have been going on, just because there are a lot of Native American sites in that area. So we contacted the tribes very quickly after the event started, and actually within the first week I had a meeting with the tribal council of the Enterprise Rancheria, and we were talking about that. We actually have monitors from the tribe that are actually out on our construction site on a daily basis. So they're actually part of the construction operation now, just to make sure. So we do surveys before an area is going to have a new road, or if there's going to be a spoil pile. And we also have the tribal folks out there. They actually know some things that we don't know. We have, you know, surveys and we have maps that have those features listed, but they know some things that we don't. So they've been guiding us on where we should, you know, what are safe areas to do work and what are not good areas to do work. So we've been very aware of that, and we're working with the tribes.
So, Mr. Brown, I guess what I would ask you is if you have information, you have concerns about that the department may not fully understand where
I'm willing to donate my time,
yeah,
because the road goes right through the middle of it.
Okay. I think,
and you still haven't answered my question about the ponds down lower that's been blown out because of the excessive amount of water. So please answer those questions.
Are you referring to down below Riverbend Park, or I'm not sure which
Yes,
pond?
sir.
Okay. Once the flows go down, we are going to do an assessment of the impacts that have occurred on the Feather River. We're working with the National Marine Fisheries Service and the California Department of Fish and Wildlife. We're meeting with them. We have twice a week we have a conference call with them just talking about this whole event. So we plan on doing an assessment of the river and the impacts that have occurred down there. So the water's been so high we haven't really had a chance to get in there and take a look at the substrates or, you know, where gravel's moved yet, but we have every intention to do that, working with our partners at Fish and Game and at the National Marine Fisheries Service.
So you do have intentions of restoring and restocking those ponds?
I'm not sure, you know, I can't commit to that yet because, you know, that's not our property down there. But we are working with those agencies to assess the impacts from this event.
Well, it isn't your property, but your problem destroyed it. Aren't you accountable for that?
Well, like I said, we will. We had a high flow event this year. You know, we had the wettest winter we've had is, you know, in the last 110 years. So definitely we had, you know, a high flow event, and, you know, those types of events occur on the Feather River. It happened in '97, 2006 we had a high flow event. So you know, as far as, you know, restocking the fish, it's things like that. You know, there's a certain point. It's the Department of Water Resources. You know, we conveyed the water through the reservoir. You know, we had 190,000 cubic feet per second coming in at one point, and we were releasing, I think, up to about a little over 100,000 cubic feet per second. So the lake absorbed quite a bit of that flood. If it wasn't for Lake Oroville, there would have been a lot more water moving down the Feather River, and there would have been a lot more damage that occurred down there. But, you know, specific to your question, I just need to know more about the site, I guess, before I could really answer it well for you.
Could we have someone talk to Mr. Brown about this after after the meeting.
Sure,
if you're here after
absolutely.
the meeting. All right, thank you. Okay, so that's Dario Martinez, you're up.
Yeah.
Do you want your card?
Yeah.
And Tom?
Okay, Dario Martinez, and I'll plug my Facebook page, Long Bar and Beyond. I guess I want to grade you on your maintenance. The spillway, if you look at this spillway and the maintenance done, I give you an F. Okay, if you look at that valve that you're talking about, the river valve, that should have been repaired and the baffle installed by now, and you nearly killed 5 of your workers on a test of that valve without the baffle in place. That should have been done by now during the drought, and it's going to be tested tomorrow. I give you a D on that one. Okay, and then there's the Ronald B. Robbie power plant that's out over there in Thermalito. It had a fire on November 22nd, 2012. Burned it all up. It's not being used. So it's still being repaired, and it's not expected to be online until 2018. It had a budget of $156 million, which was on budget by what I read in the DWR pages, but now I see it's up to $174 million, from 56 to 74. So as for being on budget and now not being on budget, I give you a C minus. And it's 2012, that's 6 years. I mean, what are you, scuffing your feet, like walking slow? You need to get some maintenance on all this system around here, because I'll give you an overall D minus. And I think you need to really look at the overall structure. I think it'd be great to make a video game. Open the gates, close the gates, save the fish. It'd be a great experience. That's a comment, and that's all I have.
Can I get your card? So, Tom, you're up, and then next is Don Fultz. Yes.
This may not be the right forum for this, because mostly what we're discussing is water over the dam, so to speak, and I'd like to readdress the potential for water through the dam. I know you told me about the green spot being due to rainwater, but there is a December 2015 report from FERC that says that the dam has had some differential settling. All earthen dams settle, and they should settle uniformly. If they don't settle uniformly, by examining the benchmarks, the monuments that are there, by a factor of 2, that raises a red flag. And a red flag was raised in December 2015 by FERC. Also, the green spot on the face of the dam, were it due to rainwater, would be vertical. It's horizontal, and it shows that there's a bench somewhere, either on the surface of the dam or internally. And those two concepts, the fact that you've got a horizontal growth pattern and a differential settling by more than a factor of 2, raised a red flag with FERC. And so my question is, have you addressed the issue of differential settling that FERC asked you to look at in December 2015?
So Cindy, who would you like to have answer that question, Cindy? Okay. Hold on just a second while you go live. I can't hear you yet. Is it on?
Hello?
There you go. Will you introduce yourself?
My name is Joe Royer. I'm with the engineering group.
And Joe, would you mind standing up? Some people have asked if you'd stand up just so they could see who's speaking. There we go. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. We've been looking at that green spot for many FERC boards, and we've studied it, trying to figure out why it's there. Recently, we've done research to look at historic photos, and we see the green spot, we see the streaks before the dam was filled. So there is something that's catching the water, and it's keeping it outside to the edge where it grows grass. But we have no indication that it's a dam safety issue. So again, we've looked at it many times, and we haven't found anything other than the rainwater that's coming down through the dam, maybe coming down a little ways, and then it hits this area, which may have been sealed by tire tracks or something when they compacted it originally, and it makes its way out the face of the dam instead of going down through the dam. So that's why we've looked at it again and again and again, and the most recent one, we found the photos to show that it was there prior to us filling the dam. As far as the settlement goes, I'm not aware of the differential settlement. The embankment has settled fairly uniform from the abutments where it's very small embankment to the center where it's a very large embankment. So again, I think that the settlement is much less than was actually expected when they designed it. But overall, the dam has settled very much as predicted, but actually it's been a lot less than what was predicted.
Okay, but
so if you wanted to follow up, people can hear you there.
On December 22nd, 2015, there's a report that there was, the board recommends to the DWR provide in the next DSMRR an explanation as to why the surface monument surveys indicate that the settlement of the EL 815 upstream bench is greater than the settlement of the dam crest by a factor of 2. And the factor of 2 is what raised the red flag.
Yeah, I can I think add some more information on that. I'm Dave Sarkisian, and I've worked on some of those reports that you're referencing, and remember that FERC comment. The 815 monuments, so these are monuments that are placed on the dam that we survey every year. Those specific monuments are on the upstream face of the dam at elevation 815, so they're often submerged underwater. So it's not every year we get to survey them. The other thing is that those were installed during construction when the dam got to elevation 815. Mm-hmm. And in construction, because of the coarse-grained nature of the materials that were being placed, they consolidate and settle relatively quickly. They dissipate the water, and so a lot of the settlement occurs during construction. So then we continued building the dam, and we got to the crest elevation of roughly 922, and some time passed, and then those monuments were installed, and we got survey data on those. So the early monuments captured a lot of the in-construction settlement, shows a lot more settlement than what are monuments on top. And in fact, the ones on top of the dam have, I believe. And so we provided that FERC in that annual report stood the differential.
Okay, that actually answered my question. One of the things that was missing here was a time scale. If the factor of 2 happened over 3 weeks, it's a bad thing. But if it happened over 40 years, it's probably harmless.
Yeah,
okay.
and in fact, we survey those. We still survey them today. When the 815, when they're underwater, we don't obviously, but we have a lot of monuments. We surveyed them. We survey them annually. We surveyed them also through this whole episode because remember, we experienced a water elevation we never had before. So that was one of our things we did immediately was get data. And the data came back and everything looked fine. The dam looks great in terms of that settlement data.
Okay, thank you.
I thought it was interesting how many people had something to say about transparency when you've got all the roads and even walking trails blocked off so nobody can even see what's going on up there. It doesn't seem like transparency to me. There was a comment that you've all gone through this with us, all the fear and the anger. None of you were in harm's way. None of you. So that's BS. It's angering to me to hear you stand up here and say that. A week ago, the green spot was because of a spring coming up from the ground. Now, today it's rainfall. Interesting. Starting to sound like the reasons we went in to fight the Iraq War or something. It was mentioned that you didn't want to use the emergency spillway, which begs the question, really? Why not? Because you knew it was a piece of crap just like we did. You've given lip service to the community over sirens. Yeah, we're on that. We're going to get on that. You know what? It would take a couple of weeks to throw up some poles and put sirens on them. Nothing has happened to date regarding sirens. You tell us you want our trust, and yet you stand up here and you just keep lying to us. I'm fed up with all of you. I'm fed up with all of you. You go home and get your fat paychecks. You're not looking out for this community. You're not.
You're Pam. Okay. Did you want to respond in any way to the last question? No? Okay. So your question is, who exactly is paying for this? When I think you're referring to the cost for the response and the recovery, Pam. Most of the water goes elsewhere, and not everyone uses the lake as recreation. So another question is, why was the dam built originally? So who's paying for it, and why was the dam built originally?
Let me start with the last part, because I'll remember that, and then you can remind me on the first part. Okay, why was the dam built? So Oroville's dam, what's called a multi-purpose reservoir. And so I think a lot of you know this, is when a dam like this is built, there's different funding sources that go into a dam when it's a multi-purpose reservoir. And so let's see if I can remember all of the purposes of this particular reservoir. So first of all, it actually was constructed for flood control. So the Corps of Engineers actually partly funded the construction of Oroville Dam, and the purpose was to provide flood protection downstream. So remember, what a reservoir like this does is it knocks off that peak. There was huge storms that came in after construction of the dam, one as high as 300,000 CFS. Just recently, just last February, that was 190,000 CFS. So as these big, huge flows come into the reservoir, when you've got such a large reservoir like this, it gets to knock off that peak so that the levees downstream could handle lesser flows. And so 190,000 came in February, and we were able to release 100,000 or so CFS going out. So that's how a flood control facility works. And this particular reservoir is part of the reasons flood control. It was also constructed for water supply. So this is part of the State Water Project. It was part of what's called the Burns-Porter Act in 1959. And so the entire State Water Project was funded by future state water contractors. And so part of the funding associated with the construction of Oroville Dam was the selling of bonds in the future to actually construct it for the purpose of water supply. There's also other uses such as recreation. So there was funding towards recreation on this particular reservoir, and it provides recreation. There's also the powerhouse, so it actually generates electricity as part. And so those are some of the main functions of this particular reservoir. It's what's called a multi-purpose reservoir. Some of these big reservoirs around the state, that's what they are. They're called multi-purpose. And so throughout the 50s, 60s, and 70s, a lot of reservoirs were constructed that way. Now, the first part of the question, if I remember correctly, who pays for this? So this goes back to that Burns-Porter Act. So the Burns-Porter Act created in 1959 established the funding mechanism to not only construct the water project, but to maintain the water project. And so there's public agencies that are out there. They're called the contractors of the State Water Project. So these public agencies pay for the funding of the operations, maintenance of this particular reservoir, operations and maintenance of the rest of the State Water Project, as well as the construction of future pieces to it. And that's usually through sales of bonds in the future. And so that's actually how this is going to happen. So the way this is going to happen is it's possibly going to be paid by the state water contractors through the sale of bonds to repair this. Now I say possibly because this was a disaster, and anytime there's a disaster in the United States, this was actually a disaster declared by the president back in February or March. And as a result of that, there's a possibility to get FEMA funding back. And so there's a possibility that FEMA will fund either a piece or a large, depending, we'll see after negotiations through FEMA. FEMA may actually pay for part of the recovery of this particular spillway. So I hope that answers your question.
That answer your question? Okay. Thanks, Dave. And I did want to acknowledge that the City Council meeting has ended, and a number of your City Council members and the mayor are here this evening, so thank you very much for coming. Okay, Juanita Espinal, I have your card, and then, okay.
Yes, I do. If we only had your brilliant minds 50 years ago, we wouldn't be in this situation right now. But anyways, unlike the other people around here, I'm here tonight to support all of you. I can't thank you enough for everything you have done. You all have stood by our community and saved us, and continuing to save us. If it wasn't for the decisions you guys have made, we would have even lost our homes, our businesses, our lands, and possibly even our lives. We would all be displaced right now if it wasn't for you guys. We would have nowhere to go. We probably wouldn't even be alive. So your brilliant decisions and all of your guys' plan making has made it to where we have our community and we still have our dam and we still have our homes. And a lot of people here don't believe that, but I do. And the reason why is because that hour, I have never felt the fear of dying the way I did. And it gave me a completely different outlook on life. And everything you guys have done, I have watched step by step by step. I go to work at 4 o'clock in the morning, I drive past that dam, and I look up there, and I see all the action going on. I see it when I come back from work, because I work in Marysville. And you guys are doing an amazing job. And I thank you from the bottom of my hearts. And I really wish your guys' minds were back there 50 years ago. And it's not your guys' fault. It's how it was constructed a long time ago. I mean, what do you expect? It's crumbling pieces of gravel. I mean, it's old. Look around your streets and stuff. It happens there too. What are you going to blame? The city? No. It's just what happens over time. But anyways, I also want to say thank you for not, I know nobody's going to agree with me on this. Thank you for not giving out all the secret information, because the fact that our community is not educated on engineering and geology and, you know, the dam safety. So one little tiny thing that might be minor to you, like a leak in the dam, is major to everybody else. They get scared and they blow it out of proportion because they don't understand what's really going on, but really it's something minor. So keeping some of that stuff secret is actually better for us, so that way people don't get scared and kind of thinking that the dam's going to crumble under and we're all going to flood and die. To me, that's just my opinion. But anyways, I just pretty much came here to support you guys, and I really, really, really think that you're a blessing. I really do. And thank you for my lives and everybody else's lives. They're not going to admit it, but yeah, thank you. Because none of them would be here tonight if it wasn't for your guys' decision. We would all be dead.
Thank you. Next up is Janet Clements. And after Janet, Dominic, is it Chiricosta? Chiricosta? I can read yours, Janet. Well, so you would like to know about the emergency spillway. Is the hole in the emergency spillway what caused the evacuation? Who would like to take that question up?
Well, I'll start it, and if anybody else wants to. So yes, so the emergency spillway, let's talk a little bit about what it is. It's a big concrete structure up there, and so if you were to look at the dam, if you were to get at the dam, you actually see this really big concrete structure, and a lot of it's actually buried under the ground, and it goes all the way to the bottom, and it is on rock. But what was happening is actually water was flowing over, and as it flows over, it starts flowing downstream, and then it starts cutting the rock. It starts cutting the bad rock that's downstream. So we all anticipated, actually, and the reason why somebody asked, you know, we didn't want to use it. We didn't want to use it because this emergency spillway was actually intended to use only during an emergency, and a lot of the mud and debris, that was expected to get into the river, and we wanted to avoid that. But what was not expected is the rock to erode so quickly downstream. And then that rock started eating up towards that concrete structure, and that's what we wanted to avoid. We wanted to avoid that rock from getting all the way to the concrete structure and possibly affecting that concrete structure. And when you look at something like this, is you're actually trying to weigh the balance. You're trying to weigh the risk. And risk is equal to like the probability of something happening and the consequence of something happening. And the consequence of something happening is big. There's just too many people. So when you're in the dam safety business, you have to be conservative. You have to save lives. It's all about saving lives. And so that's why the reason the sheriff actually called the evacuation, because it was just getting too close for comfort. That rock was getting eroded back and farther, and it was just too close to comfort. We were able to actually avoid that. It stopped by us getting more water down the main spillway and stopped that water from going over the emergency spillway. So now moving forward, we got to fix that. We can't allow that. And so one of the discussions up here, and there's a picture, what you do, and I'm not going to use the engineering term, but what you do is you actually put a wall of concrete, and we're going to drill a wall of concrete, and we're going to what they call cut it off, so that doesn't happen again. So when that erosion comes back, it's going to hit this wall of concrete, and it'll stop there. So it's nothing new. We've actually done these concrete walls in a lot of other dams more recently in the last couple of decades, so that's how we're going to partially repair the emergency spillway. So I hope that answers your question. Yep, and that's it.
And on top of this, when it happens like that, that's when you hear from us. And that's how it happened, okay? All of this gets put out to us. The sheriff evaluates it with all of them and makes a decision. And that's how this rolled out. But it was very fast. Trust me, I was in that meeting and it happened like this. And that's why it's emergencies. That's why it's evacuations. That's why these things go like that. They go fast, and we need to try and do what we can to save lives. That's why we are partnering with them right out of the gate. That's why Sheriff Honey has us in with them, so that we are in communication with them constantly, so that if something happens again, we can get right on it.
I'll get that back. So I've got Dominic, is it Chiricosta? Chiricosta? I apologize if I mispronounced your name. No? Dominic's not here? No? All right, well, I'm going to hold on to this card just in case. Next is Robert Weiss. Is it Do? Da. Da. Okay. Done. That's right. Your ends look like H's. I apologize, Robert. You were here the other night, too. Thank you.
Good to be back again.
There you go.
As he said, my name is Robert Weiss Dunn. I'm owner of Northern California Guide Service, and I'm also the treasurer of NorCal Guides and Sportsmen Association. I've been a member of the association since 1987. I've seen many fishery issues. Today I'm going to speak on the environmental impact of the dam collapse and catastrophe that we've had to our environment on the Feather River. I represent the fishing guides, the sportsmen, and the farmers. I would like DWR to recommend that our Feather River hatchery raise an extra 2 million salmon and steelhead to mitigate the fish losses due to the Oroville Dam crisis and failure. Today I was notified that there was more stranding of our fish, so we have more fish lost today. I would also like DWR to immediately restore the spawning gravel that was scoured out of the Feather River below the fish hatchery due to high flows, because the endangered spring run salmon are present now in the river looking for a place to spawn. The Bureau of Reclamation, they are the ones who are in charge of the Sacramento River, 2 months ago proactively replenished the spawning gravel there in that area due to high flow scouring. So I believe that our agency at the DWR needs to actively pursue the replenishing of the spawning gravel. Also, this is for the farmers and also downstream. Help shore up the riverbank with riprap rock and planting of riparian vegetation in a tier system, and also help mitigate financial losses to the sport fishing industry and farming and local business industry affected by Oroville Dam crisis and failure. And at the first meeting, not one of our meetings, the DWR mentioned helping fishing, farming, and environmental impact. And again, tonight, the same thing when they had their presentation. I ask you tonight to please have some information for me at the next meeting of these questions and suggestions.
So did we get to the end of your statement at this point?
That's the end of my statement.
Okay.
I'm waiting for
Is there
a
a response?
response.
Any response, Cindy?
Yes, I got a couple comments. Robert, and you have my contact information, so it would be helpful if you could send me an email with your questions as well. Just want to make sure I could respond to them, or would be ready for the next meeting. As far as your question about releasing more fish from the Feather River Fish Hatchery, we actually were able to make our full releases from the Feather River Fish Hatchery this year. So, it's something I could certainly bring up with the Department of Fish and Wildlife. But there's a lot of discussions need to occur with that between them, the National Marine Fisheries Service, and the Department of Water Resources. As far as them releasing more fish, because there could be other impacts if there's going to be competition with wild fish in the river and things like that. So the biologists would need to discuss it, but we could certainly, I'll bring that up the next time I meet with them. We've actually been, as I explained to you earlier, we've had regular conversations twice a week with the National Marine Fisheries Service, Department of Fish and Wildlife, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and other state and federal environmental agencies about the whole spillway incident and what's going on with the river, the turbidity issue. And so right now, as far as the habitat in the river, we've been waiting for the flows to drop down before we can even get in there and do any actual assessments of the gravel and looking at sedimentation, things like that. So we are going to be doing that when this summer when the water drops down. But up until just yesterday, water's been too high to really be able to get in there and do that yet. I'm sorry. Yes, I'm sorry. My wife tells me that all the time. Okay.
Eric's going to slow down.
I'm going to slow down. I'm sorry for talking too fast.
All right.
So you also asked a question about downstream impacts to farming. I can't really speak to that. Maybe someone else would be better to speak to that. But that might be better if you maybe send that to me, because I'm not sure if anyone can speak to that issue. But.
Okay, see if this works. So first of all, thank you very much, Mr. Dunn. I know you were with us last week and for coming tonight, for the suggestions. I was scribbling them down as fast as I could last week. I'm not sure I captured everything this time around. But I think we're going to need to follow up with you on some of these. I know Eric's committed to doing that, but I want to make sure we talk a little bit offline if that's okay, so we have your full list of the points you brought up tonight as well as last week. And I'd like to understand maybe a little bit more about the downstream comments or questions that you have or suggestions that you want to discuss. So is that okay?
That's fine. Okay. I'd like to readdress the mitigation of the lost fish.
Okay.
I know we talked to I've been doing this for about 40 years, studying the river system and our fish. I understand that we always talk to our agencies, but this is a simple solution. Our Feather River Hatchery has the capacity to mitigate what I'm asking for. And there is no impact of raising the more fish if we lost that many fish due to these stranding of the fish, the excess sediment that the fish have died due to the sloughing off of our farmland, creating excess turbidity in the river, which we all know turbidity fish don't live well in that. So, I mean, I respect that we're working on it, but I would like to have some serious answers about our fish being mitigated, because I think that's very important.
Well, just one other comment. I can commit to bring your comments directly to Department of Fish and Game and the National Marine Fisheries Service on Friday when we have our conference call. I will bring what you're talking to, and we'll have that discussion.
Thank you very much.
Well,
all right. Thanks, Rob. So next is Tasha Levinson. And after Tasha, Seth Mitchell. Would you like your card? Or you got
No, I wrote down some notes.
All right. So you can lower that if you want. And
is that better?
Magic.
Tasha Levinson of Oroville. The burden of this dam was supposed to come with certain benefits in the license, a whole lot of which have not been fulfilled. So among the other things you can do is just start keeping your promises. And you might actually go back and look at the original license to see which promises you have not fulfilled and make sure you start fulfilling them. Among them were supposed to be tremendous economic benefits to this area. And even in the contracts you've done for the repair here, you have not made sure that these high-paying jobs come to local people, or that they offer apprenticeship training for local people, or do anything to really benefit these people here locally. That would be something that you could do to start fulfilling promises to us. Thank you.
So Seth Mitchell, and then up next is David Briscoe.
Hi guys.
We can
Thank you
raise
for the
that
opportunity.
Feel free to raise that.
My name is Seth Mitchell. I live here in the North State, and I've worked in the biological field for 20 years. I'm a certified arborist and a licensed fishing guide in Northern California. I'm also the secretary for the Northern California Guides and Sportsmen Association. Currently, the Feather River has had its riparian vegetation destroyed along the river below the city of Oroville due to the spillway issues and increased flows. The importance of the riparian vegetation is to stabilize the river banks and filter things like debris, sediments, nutrients, pesticides, bacteria, provide habitat for fish and organisms, and slow down the river flows as heavy rain events come to the North State. These riparian areas also provide shade for migrating fish, such as salmon, which need cool water temperatures to survive. Without riparian buffer zones along the river, the banks will continue to erode, and the silt will continue to clog, spawning gravels and plug channels along the river. The organisms that live in these areas will no longer have habitat to support them. These organisms contribute to the health of the river and provide food for fish and wildlife along the banks and in the river. The water temperatures in the river will continue to increase, especially with added warm water that the Department of Water Resources continues to release from the Thermalito Afterbay. And the increase in water temperatures in the river, along with the additional water released from the Afterbay, will ultimately provide undesirable spawning and migration conditions for fish and salmon that depend on the cool water for survival. I feel that due to the loss of the riparian buffer zones along the river, the Department of Water Resources should be responsible for the rehab of the affected areas. Planting riparian vegetation, adding rock to stabilize banks, or installing levees in the areas where the flows on the river have increased are just a few things that should be considered. These implementations will aid in the recovery and the health of the river and provide and improve the habitat that has been lost due to the cascade of events. I ask the Department of Water Resources, what mitigation plans do you have in place to rehab the riparian zones that have been affected or lost along the Feather River below Oroville?
Eric, could you stand up just so people can see you? Thanks.
Okay, thanks. Thank you for your comments. They're very reasoned. I appreciate that. We definitely have a concern for the impacts on the river, and like I said, we are going to be assessing once the flows drop down. We're going to be doing an assessment of the river in working with our state and federal fish and wildlife partners. So, as far as exactly what we're going to do, rip-wrapping banks and stuff like that, I can't really make a commitment right now, but I can tell you we are going to be looking at the impacts. And the Department of Water Resources is committed to doing restoration work on the Feather River. When our new license is issued, we actually have a whole suite of projects we're going to be doing to improve habitat in the river. So that's I don't know how familiar you are with our settlement agreement, our new license, but it actually has an entire program to do just what you're talking about. So as far as the temperatures in the river, we are going to have full operational capability this year to meet all of our flow and temperature requirements that we have for the river. And I think especially this year with the higher flows we're going to see, the temperatures are going to be lower than they normally would. So I can say that we will meet our temperature requirements for the river this year.
Do these implementations, are these going to be rewritten into the new FERC licensing, or do you have an emergency operation plan in place to stabilize the banks on the river? Because not only are we losing the farms downstream, but we're also in a dire time frame right now to where we're going to lose migrating fish in the river due to the banks not being stabilized anymore because the riparian vegetation is basically lost at this point.
Well, farming in the flood zone of the river, I don't really know that issue well enough. I can't speak to that. It's not something the Department of Water Resources generally gets involved with from an environmental standpoint. So I really can't speak to that. But certainly riparian habitat is a big factor. In fact, we actually have a program when the new license is issued that we're going to be implementing to enhance riparian habitat in the area, within our project area, that upper 10 miles or so of the river zone. So.
Is anything written in an emergency operation plan with the current situation that has presented itself with the dam situation?
No, we don't have anything like that.
I would ask that be written in.
Okay.
The time is now.
Sure.
we don't really have much time. I mean, the summer heat's coming. The temperatures are going to rise. Our migrating fish are going to have high water temperatures. We don't want them trucked. We want them to stay right here in the North State.
Right. Well, like I said, we're going to meet our temperature requirements. Flows are actually going to be higher than they normally are, just because this is a wet year. As far as the spillway incident itself, what you're talking about, things that really aren't from the spillway itself. It's the temperatures in the river are a function of a variety of things, and like I said, with the higher flows this year, it should actually be less of a problem than we even normally have. So we have operational capability to meet our flow and temperature requirements. I can assure you of that. I think without there needing to be any kind of a change because of the spillway incident.
I think what I'm getting at is that the 100-year floodplain the 100-year flood plain on the river and its riparian vegetation has been destroyed because of the emergency operations that have taken place. And not only is the 100-year floodplain destroyed, but the 50-year floodplain and the 25-year floodplain have also been destroyed. And I mean, the time is now to act.
Well, we are going to be assessing that, as I said, with the state and federal environmental agencies.
All right. Cindy, did you have something you wanted to add, I think?
Yeah. Just once upon a time, I was a fisheries biologist. It was a really cool job, I must say. Not in this area, but because of your comments and Mr. Dunn's comments, I think that we need to have some categories of information that perhaps we need to be getting out as things are developed, as it becomes available, because this is part of the response process. And I know it's not out there yet. I know plans are, being developed as we speak. We need to do mitigation and whatnot. So I just want to honor the fact that this is kind of a little bit of a different category than we've talked about so far, but sure. I think it's very critical, and I think it's some information we should make sure that's part of the stream that's coming out.
Our organization has taken the assemblyman out on the river to show him damage, that is occurring and continues to occur when the high flows are expected. And so we ask that you guys really look hard into that issue, because there's a lot that's being lost with the high flows. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay. David Briscoe is next, and Matt Mentink. Is David Briscoe here? No? There's not actually a question, otherwise I would read it, but it's an inquiry about the forensic team finding. Can you generally explain who the forensic team are? Maybe we can address that.
Okay, so again, remember the forensic team, completely different than the board of consultants. So the forensic team is to figure out what happened. And so in order to do that, you actually have to gather a lot of facts. And so this forensic team is actually looking at thousands of pages of documents. They're actually looking at information that we have just collected. So we actually went out there and we did a lot of new exploration in and around the spillway. So all that information is going to be used to figure out, based on the facts, what's going to be their opinion on what actually happened. The first thing they're going to do, though, and you probably read this in different articles already, is what are the things that could have actually happened? And so we all have a long list of, here's the things that could have happened. Well, the forensic team, the first thing they're going to do is they're going to lay out, here are the things that could have happened. And the reason we want that is when we do the actual next design, we don't want to repeat the mistakes. And so we're going to get that list. Most of us kind of know are the things that could have already happened, but we'll use the forensic team's analysis on that piece of it, make sure we don't redesign something that actually occurred. But then it's going to take a little bit of time for the forensic team to actually lay out what actually happened. So we're actually expecting a report sometime in the fall to lay out what actually happened. And it's not just your community. It's not just the state of California that's interested in this. It's actually a world event in dam safety. We all want to learn so we could apply this worldwide and make sure this actually doesn't happen anywhere else in the world. So a lot to come on that one.
Thanks, Dave. So Matt, are you here? Here you are, right. I'm guessing you don't need your card?
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much for holding these public meetings. As you can tell, there's a lot of concern and a lot of people that have questions they want answered. I think especially in this community, the people that live and stare at the emergency spillway on a daily basis would like to know the operational manual that talks about use of the emergency spillway. Is there somebody in the staff who's familiar with the operating manual on how we regulate water flows and the amount of flood storage that's needed behind the dam? Anybody that can speak to that?
Are you asking whether there's someone from DWR who would?
Yes.
I would ask.
Yes, I'll try.
Do you have a microphone, Joe? Let's give Joe a microphone.
What's the flood storage requirement for Oroville Dam without Marysville Dam?
Well, I'm not in the operation side, so I don't know the specifics, but around 750,000 acre feet is the maximum required flood pool, and that is when the wetness index of the watershed is wet. So that means the preceding 30 days, how much water has been received in that watershed, so how fast that water can get to the reservoir.
When Marysville Dam wasn't built in the 70s, was not the original operational manual written by Army Corps of Engineers required 900 acre feet between the two reservoirs, and therefore Oroville had to assume another 150,000 acre feet beyond the existing flood pool?
I cannot say that I'm aware of that. I have seen the 1974 Army Corps Flood Control Regulation Guidebook, but I'm not aware of that.
Is there anybody else who may have more knowledge regarding that additional 150,000 acre feet?
So if there's a specific question you frame up, maybe we can get at it that way. Maybe someone can get at the question.
My understanding is that that last 150,000 acre feet that was to be supplied by Marysville Dam is put in the form of surcharge flows. Does that ring a bell to anybody?
I think what we're going to have to do is go back and research what the original water control manual said. I think the one that we have right now is 1971, which I thought was the original, but we will go back and take a look at that. And are you going to be at the next one? I know we saw you on Thursday, but we can answer this question for you.
What was the question? What are you looking? What information are you looking for?
My understanding is that the flood pool was already established in the assumption Marysville Dam would be built. It got established at 750. There's a clause within the 1970 licensing that said that without Marysville Dam, there needs to be 900 at Oroville. Instead of lowering the flood pool, you put the water on top of the emergency spillway in the form of surcharges. That as the water started to flow over the top of the emergency spillway, you would throttle down the gates on the main spillway to maintain 150,000 cubic feet per second down the river system. And you would throttle that all the way down until there was 10 to 12 feet of water coming over the top of the emergency spillway. Those were surcharge allowances that were allowed instead of lowering the river, the flood pool down the 150,000 acre feet that it should have been without Marysville Dam. That we were kind of doing a smoke and mirror thing with that last 150,000 acre feet that was required by Marysville Dam.
I think we're going to have to also talk to our partners at the Army Corps of Engineers who actually wrote that water control manual.
Could we be a part of that conversation?
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so Norman Cable, I have a question from you, and then next up is Terry Ann Tyberg. Is Norman here? I don't think I can do justice to Norman's question without him. And so it starts out, are there any attorneys here? And you always know there's a problem there. And I want to be respectful of the fact that there is a question, but I just don't know that I can do this justice, so I'm going to hold on to it. Okay, Terry Ann Tyberg, are you here? I will read the question. Is there any chance of creating a viewing platform somewhere across from all the construction? We want to be able to watch the progress. How many of you have that question? Okay. I thought so. Yes, the question is there any chance of creating a viewing platform somewhere across from all the construction? We want to be able to watch the progress.
Yes, we are in talks with the community of figuring out where exactly to put that platform so that you can see what is happening. We are working that right now. We don't know where it's going to be, though. Not quite yet.
So you're working on it. Stay tuned. That's on your to-do list. Okay. All right, Debbie Armas. Debbie, are you here? Where's Debbie? No? Okay, well, there's another question. So here's the question. How can you fix the spillway when the earth is giving way? If you fix it by November, how safe will this be and for how long? How can you fix the spillway when the earth is giving way?
I'm not sure I understand the question. When the earth is giving way?
Yes. That it's corroding.
When the earth is corroding.
Eroding.
Okay, so I'm not sure whether we're talking about the emergency spillway or the main spill.
Let's start with the emergency spillway since
okay, so first of all, right now it's not eroding. I mean, it was actively eroding when it was overtopping with water. So it's not actively eroding. And so in fact, that's a perfect construction site. We could actually go out there and we can actually work on that. And we could actually work on it past November because we're not expecting water to go over that after November even. And so I would imagine that construction is actually going to continue on through the winter to continue to fix that. And so there was erosion going on. And so the question is, how do you fix that? And I think what you see up here is how to do that. We're going to put that wall, we explained that, and then we're going to put a roller compacted concrete slab over that. So the other spillway, again, I don't think it's eroding, so it's already eroded. It's already eroded. And so actually it's nice and clean for us to actually do the construction. And so we're going to use what's there. We're going to use all the material that actually went into the river. We pulled that back up. We stockpiled it. It's going to be used to actually make roller compacted concrete, put it back stronger than actually what it was because it's now going to be concrete. And so we're laying back slopes on both sides of it now for construction, for safety. And so you need to do that because if you've seen pictures of it, not too long ago, it was very vertical, and so folks can't get in there and work. So we've been laying back those slopes ever since. So I'm not sure I answered the question, but there is not active erosion going on right now. Instead, it had already eroded, so now we're going to repair it.
Okay. Okay, thanks, Dave. So Arlen, is it Scheibig? I'm sorry. I need to, Tom, I need to stick with it. Pardon me? Is it on? Did you turn it on?
Okay, all right, so RCC stands for roller compacted concrete. So in the old days when we used to build dams, we actually used to build them out of concrete, just what we called mass concrete. That's what you probably put your driveway out of. Nowadays we don't do that. We build dams out of what's called roller compacted concrete. It's pretty much the same. It looks the same when it's all said and done, but it's a lot faster construction. So we built a roller compacted concrete dam. We actually built 2 of them in the last 10 years in San Diego. We're actually able to put those up pretty fast, and so that's why we're going to use it here. It's a lot more economical, but more importantly, it's a lot faster to actually construct.
Thank you. So Arlen, you had a question. Are you here, Arlen? Arlen had a question about cost of the project. I think part of that, the question really was, what do you expect the final bill to be, and how much will California taxpayers pay of the final bill?
Well, I think we kind of answered that question. So we answered it that it's the water contractors who are responsible to pay that bill. and possibly FEMA. We talked about the estimate already. And then there will be changes. There's always changes in major construction, and so there will most likely be change in the actual bill, and that'll be adjusted as we go through construction. So,
okay. David Seaton, are you here? David, there you go. And then next up is Roger Edmondson.
Yeah, my name's David Seaton. I was born here in Oroville, raised 1960. I actually witnessed the birth of the Oroville Dam. My dad, my grandparents, and uncles, they're most all dead now, but I've been here, I watched it come up from the ground up. I just wanted to compliment you guys on the job you are doing. What the people of Oroville don't understand about the Oroville Dam is that if it wasn't there, downtown Oroville would have been flooded. There'd been 10 foot of water flowing down Montgomery Street. You know, almost 200,000, that's a lot. If people seen what 100,000 looked like. So thank God for the Oroville Dam. I'm a fisherman too. And I understand the spillway comes first. You know, that's how I feel. As far as just the scope of the amount of work that you guys have done is nothing but, you know, it's a miracle. I mean, just the amount of work, the amount of material that's been moved out of the diversion pool, you know, is amazing. And I just want to compliment you guys on a job well done. You know, we make mistakes. You learn by your mistakes. I don't think they ever really thought about what would happen if water overflowed that emergency spillway. You know, I knew it'd be a disaster, but you know, you learn by your mistakes. It should have never happened. I'd have just let it flow through the damaged spillway myself. But anyway, you learn by your mistakes, and I just want to say I appreciate the job you guys are doing. I hope your transparency is real. I mean, I've got faith in you, and I was going to stand up here and say some mean things, but you guys have answered all my questions, you know, to my satisfaction. I'm happy with you guys. I just want to let you know that.
Thank you. Roger Edmondson, are you here? Come on up. Do you need your card?
No, thanks.
All right.
Roger Edmondson, resident of Oroville. I actually have 3 quick questions. After all is said and done, all put together, all back to normal, is Oroville going to have the license to run the power plant? Question 1. Question 2, after all is said and done, are we going to be able to use the spillway launch ramp for launching our boats? And will we have to go to a different route, or are we going to be able to drive across the dam? Question 3, Mount Spillway on Cherokee, all right, which is all the dirt pulled out of the river to make the flow from the power plant work. Are we going to run that through a wash plant and get all the gold that we can out of it to help pay for this? Those are my questions.
So, did you just refer to Mount Spillway?
Yes.
You did. All right.
Mount Spillway. I watched the thing grow.
All right, so the first question had to do with getting a license for the power plant.
Okay, so the first question is a great question. So in fact, we're actually in Washington, D.C. right now trying to ask that question ourselves. The problem with that is there's 2 commissioners right now on the FERC commission. We need a 3rd. And so
happens every time. Every 10 years, oh, we need another person. Oh, we need another environmental thing.
Well, the commission is a FERC regulator. It's a federal appointed by the president. And so it's out of our hands, but we want that commissioner to get on there, get appointed, so we can answer your question. That's a great question. We don't know the answer to that. It's going to be up to FDRC. When are we going to get that license? So great question. We'll answer that as soon as FERC tells us. What was the second question?
Spillway ramp. Will they people be able to use it in the future?
Can you answer that one?
Eric. Speak slowly and stand up.
Okay.
That's great.
Regarding the Spillway boat ramp, what we know is that Spillway boat ramp is not going to be available this year. It's not going to be available next year. As far as past that, we don't know yet. I can't say. It's a question, working in the recreation side, I've been very curious. I've been asking that question myself, but the decision hasn't been made yet. We just know it's going to be part of the construction zone for sure this year, very likely next year. And beyond that, we don't know yet. But I will say that we are actively right now working on ways to try to offset the impacts of losing the Spillway boat ramp, because it's our biggest boat ramp on the lake. It's got 400 parking places, so we're very well aware of that. We're working very hard right now to try to offset those impacts on recreation.
Super. And actually, I do have one last question.
Wait, let's just sort this out. So someone asked, can you give any more details, Eric, about the other things you're working on?
Oh, okay. Yes. So what we're looking at is, the other boat ramps on Lake Oroville are currently open. There's Loafer Creek boat ramp, there's Bidwell boat ramp, Lime Saddle boat ramps are the primary ones. So we're looking at expanding the parking lots at those existing boat ramps right now. Of course, there's permitting you have to do, there's contracting you have to do, there's design work and all that kind of stuff. So we're very actively trying to get all that together. We have some other ideas too. As the lake drops down, we gain additional parking, but we start to lose ramp lanes. So we're also even looking at that, like later on in the year. That you can't do until the water drops down, of course, and so it's more long term. So right now we're trying to phase things, hit the things that we can do on the shorter timeline, like the parking lots, shuttle service at the boat ramps. If we can develop an off-site parking lot or utilize an off-site parking lot like at Bidwell boat ramp right now. Talking about maybe using the Kelly Ridge Visitor Center or the Lake Oroville Visitor Center parking lot and having a shuttle service. I know we're trying to do what we can, though. I mean, that's something we can get going right away. So we're scrambling. And one last comment.
Yes.
We've actually talked to the Oroville Recreation Advisory Committee. They have some ideas as well. So we're going to be working with them also to try to develop what we can. So.
All right, we have a gold mining question. I don't want to lose that one.
Well, bring your pan and I'll meet you out there. Let's see if we can't get something.
They won't let me in there.
Oh, darn, me neither. I don't know what you can say about gold, but there was another question that I think we should clarify too, the construction window. So we talked about we're going to try to repair everything by November 1st. Remember, what we're going to do is we're going to make as far as we can up. We're going to be replacing slabs as we go up. We're not going to finish it all in 1 year, but we're going to get the dam safe for November 1st. Then we're going to have to come back next year and do some cleanup and finish some things off. So you can kind of consider that this is going to be a 2-year construction period, with most of it actually happening this year. You're going to see it really busy picking up. Probably in the next couple of weeks, you're going to start seeing some heavy action out there.
Well, we're hoping that the residents of Oroville will have free boat access to our lake since we don't have our main ramp.
Noted.
So I have another question from Pam Sibley, but I think Pam is not here any longer. Is that right? Are you here? No. Pam asked, when are you going to start repairs on Riverbend Park? When will it be open?
So the question was about Riverbend Park. Yes. That's not a DWR park. That's operated by the Federal Recreation Parks District. So they have a website. I think they are keeping updates on the website. So that's what I know right now. I know there's been damage out there from the high flow event, and they are looking at doing repairs. As I understand, it was covered by their insurance policy. So they're looking at doing assessments right now to figure out what they can what they can repair and how they're going to go about doing that.
Thanks. So I have a question from Ray. Is it Ray Furpo? You have a traffic question at a minimum is the one I have. All right. You're up.
Okay. Ray Furpo, Kelly Ridge, Unit 7, private road. I represent 49 lot owners. We overlook the dam, the river, the spillway, everything. We see it, and so do hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of other people in Oroville that come onto our private road and gawk and run over stuff and walk on people's property. Question, can we get a guard posted on our private road to relieve the attractive nuisance the DWR created inadvertently? That's the one question. I have 3 more.
And they're all related to traffic, I'm guessing?
Pretty much.
Yeah, okay.
When will Oro Dam East be open to residents so we can cut off going down Olive Highway and make our trip shorter to town and to Chico? Who can I contact at DWR for repair of our private road that was damaged by SRC, the contractor, and by the people who've been coming in to look? Because we do have some traffic. We do have some massive holes that were created, especially at the bottom where they utilized our fire hydrant because the one that SRC was using broke. The last one is regarding the new sewer pipe that's being put in to accommodate your trailers that are going up in the parking lot overlooking the dam. And they're putting in an 8-inch pipe. It's connecting to our sewer lines. We don't know what kind of effect that's going to have on our existing lines. We have 6-inch lines. We have probably, maybe, hopefully, some 8-inch lines, but we don't know. I'm hoping that you guys took a look at that. So those are my 4 questions.
All right. Well, we'll see how many answers we have.
Okay.
Cindy.
I'll start, and then there's a couple in here I don't have the answer to, but maybe somebody else does, or we're going to follow up with you, Mr. Firpo. So let us look into the security issue. I think that's something we need to explore more, this idea of a guard because of all the gawkers, or I think that's what you called them, but the folks that are coming in on your private lane to look at all the work that's going on. So let us look into that.
We got that done on, of course, Canyon and Oroville. We are right there by you. I don't know if you're familiar with those.
Tell me the name of it again, I'm sorry.
Omen Drive.
Okay, thank you.
This is right on the other side of the overlook parking lot.
Oh, okay.
Everyone can hear you, so I want to make sure everyone can hear.
Okay.
They're describing the names of the road.
So Omen Drive.
Is that right?
Okay.
It's Omen Drive. It's right on the other side of the Overlook Dam parking lot from where the entrance to that parking lot is.
Okay.
So that's
Okay.
our street, and as Ray said, we've had thousands of people driving up there to see what they can see, and it's basically destroyed our street. And we are now looking at we've got one estimate of about $125,000, which we, the homeowners, are going to have to pay.
That's for the repairs to the road?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So, which I have a related question, if I can just jump.
Oh, wait a second. I want to, if you could hold on to that question, I want to make sure we get to the other parts of Mr. Firpo's question.
Okay, well, the 2 parts, so again, we'll look in, let's have some discussion about the repairs. I don't know if that's something the road task force could look at. Okay.
Those roads, by the way, are all private. That's a private road, not a county road.
Right, okay.
Each person owns right to the center of the road. We try to tell people, yes, I need a mile.
Okay, so.
Signs posted and give them a mile. I can't hear you. He can't hear you. All right, it's a private road, and when we ask people and tell people that it's a private road and ask them not to come on, they can't see anything anyway, they flip us off. They're telling us where to go, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what's the deal here? So a guard would just absolutely be, wonderful for us in that situation.
All right. Is there more to?
When will Oro Dam East
Yes.
open? I don't
open.
know the answer to that. I don't know if there's anyone here who has
We are looking into that right now. Currently it is closed due to security and safety concerns. We have a lot of construction traffic going on there. But we are looking at where the construction traffic is going to be going for this main Spillways contract that we just awarded. And as soon as we figure that out, we'll be talking with the sheriff. The sheriff is in agreement that we need to keep it closed for right now. And so we are going to be looking at that. Yes, we are aware of it.
Okay. Yes, the sewer line.
That one I don't know. Yeah, I think we're going to have to get back to you on the sewer line question. Is your email, your phone number on the card that you gave in?
Yes, it is. But I want to make sure we can read it. So I need your best handwriting. Okay.
So we will contact you with that answer.
All right.
Yeah, I just a follow up on his thing about the road repair. I've found your claim form here, but this is basically for, requesting a monetary reimbursement. And one thing we wanted to throw out for your consideration is you're going to have equipment and material up there repaving the Overlook Dam parking lot. Isn't that correct? And it seems to us that it'd be a lot cheaper all the way around if while your equipment and material is up there, if you would just go and repave our road at the same time. That seems to be more economical than us hiring a private company to do it and then submitting a claim and asking you to pay us back. So something to be, for consideration.
All right, thanks. So I have a question from Mitch Simpson. 200,000 people were displaced and it cost roughly $500 per person. Where is the reimbursement? $200,000 people were displaced and it cost roughly $500 per person. Where is the reimbursement for the people who were displaced?
We're gonna have to answer that question another night. I don't know the answer right now.
Don't have information on that right now.
But we will look into that.
It needs some follow-up. You'll look into it. Okay. Let's see. Nikki Simpson, are you here? No? All right. I will read this question. Why was the lake allowed to get to flood stage and the emergency spillway pressed into service? Why was the lake not released sooner? So if you can reintroduce yourself and stand up. There you go. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Gina House. I'm going to refer to my notes because I'm not very good at speaking.
Okay, so you need to speak right into the microphone.
Right.
Okay.
I am going to refer to my notes because I'm not very good at speaking in front of a crowd. The spillway, so the releases, a lot of the releases were made through the Hyatt Power Plant prior to us actually, the visual seeing through the spillway. We started making spillway releases at the end of January, so we were releasing to supplement the Hyatt releases. And we have operational criteria that we have to follow from the Corps. And I do that in conjunction with our Water Operations Office, which is out of Sacramento, who then coordinates all of the operations with the Bureau of Reclamation and for all the project releases to the Feather River. So I hope that answers the question. Levels. Lake levels. So for the lake levels, every day we work with the Operations Control Office, which is in Sacramento, again, our water management branch, and every day they're providing us information on hydrology and looking into the longer term forecasts to assure that we have enough storage for this next winter. The lake level is still expected to be high enough for recreational purposes. However, we're still looking at the public safety. The plan is we have to open the gates one more time, and then once the gates are closed, the lake elevation may temporarily increase because we see a lot of the snow melt off is going to be coming down. I know we have another storm, I think we're expecting Thursday, that may have a little bit of a peak that we may also see, but the capacity of the lake is going to be able to absorb all of that. Let's see. That's it. What's your projection We don't have a projected level right now. It's really hard to adequately give you that level. It's going to depend on what the snow melt-off is. We also take into consideration what our requirements are downstream as far as for the Delta release requirements for their salinity. Let's see, I know I have more notes here on this. We also have to at least obtain our critical power pool for releases through the power plant as well. So we're going to take all of that into consideration, as well as we have the river valve outlet system in service starting tomorrow. So we'll have that capacity. So we'll pretty much utilize the power plant and the RVOS system as needed for the releases.
So let me add a little bit to that. So it kind of goes back to that question we talked about before. So remember, there's a lot of factors going on here. There's the snow melt that's coming in. We're going to get that snow melt through the reservoir. We're going to get it through the reservoir through mainly the powerhouse, and there's also that river valve that's going to be used. And we want that big, long construction window. So what we're expecting is one more time, we're going to open that gate. Maybe normally we wouldn't do that, but we're going to do that this time. We're also got our regulators, the Division of Safety of Dams and FERC, who are going to require us to lower that reservoir. And so what's going to happen is we're going to shut the gate, most likely at the end of May. The reservoir is probably going to be somewhere around there, 8:30-ish kind of thing. Snow melt's going to be coming in at the time. We're probably going to be able to keep up with it, possibly with the power plant, possibly not. So the reservoir may rise a little bit, not significantly high. But then as the summer goes on, remember that snow melt starts slowing down, and then the outlets are going to be able to keep up and surpass that really quickly. And so then the reservoir is going to start dropping over the summer, and it's going to continue to drop quite a bit over the summer. And the reason is goes back to safety. So we're balancing water supply, but we're also balancing safety. Safety is the #1 thing. So that reservoir is going to get drawn down, and we're going to be working on that question of how far do we draw that down. We're going to be working on that over the next few weeks with the regulators.
Okay, thanks, Dave. So some of you may have noticed Sheriff Hania just walked in. Is there anything you wanted to offer to your constituents here, Sheriff? Maybe they saved some hard questions for you, I don't know.
How y'all doing tonight? Thank you all. Thank you. So I sent Lieutenant Bell tonight. He's done a good job for you? Very good. Glad to hear that. One of my best people. There was another event that I had previously committed to, and I wanted to keep my promise to those folks, so I went ahead and went to that, and that got over a little early. And fortunately, because of our intrepid local news hounds, if you will, I was watching a lot of this event on Facebook Live. So I was keeping monitoring, but I wanted to come and just catch the last part of it. So I hope that you're getting your questions answered, and if we don't have the answers to them, then we'll make sure that we get them, right, guys? Exactly right. But I do appreciate all of you coming out. I think it's very, very important that everybody comes out and is part of the process, understands what's going on, and also appreciate the fact that DWR has made themselves available to come out to the community and talk about what's going on. Armed with information, we're much, much better positioned to make sure that things are being done correctly and that our safety is paramount. And I know that we've got a couple of more meetings to go, and I will try to make as many of them as I possibly can, but if not, I've got some incredible staff members who will be there. And I'll just finish on this one note, if you'll allow me. Every opportunity that I have had to get out and speak with members of my community, I have wanted to tell you all this. This has been it's been a crazy couple of months, right? I mean, there's been a lot of, it's been an experience that I hope we never have to go through again, but I have got to tell you that I am so proud of our community. It's incredible how this community came together. It's incredible about how you have supported one another, you've supported public safety, and that you're staying engaged. And I got to tell you, I'm proud to be your sheriff. I'm proud of the fact that we have got a community that cares about one another and cares about these important issues. So thank you all for being out here. Thank you for coming, and keep it up. Thank you.
Okay, I have a question from Margie who asked that I read this question. I understand the upper dams were not built to hold spring runoff. How is DWR managing this? I understand the upper dams were not built to hold spring runoff. How is DWR managing this?
I'm not sure I understand the question. So the upper dam, I'm not too sure what that's referring to. The other reservoirs, are they flood control reservoirs? Is that the question? Yeah. They're not flood control reservoirs. So maybe a clarification.
Well, I'm willing to do that, but I also did invite people to have me read their questions, so I'll move through these as quickly as I can.
So I don't know if I answered the question, but the upper dams are not flood control facilities, and they don't control. It's Oroville that does that. So I'm not sure I completely understand the question, but
if someone comes to another meeting and has that question, we have the card. We can get in touch. Yes, we do have. No, Margie did not give us any contact information. All right. The next question is from Sloan Carlson. Is Sloan here? And Sloan, yes, you're here. You asked that I read this question. What are your plans for making a continuous horse trail from, is it Loafer Creek Horse Camp to Lakeland parking area? Tourists pay a lot of money to horse camp there and had over 50 miles of trails to ride on. Now they pay the same price and can only ride the short trails around Loafer Creek and over to the visitor center.
So as you explained, you can use the trails in the Loafer Creek area, get up to where the visitor center is, but right now the trail is closed down along the diversion pool on the south side, there by where the Hyatt entrance is. The answer is we're working on it. It's going to depend on the traffic construction zone and the routes that the trucks are going to take. So we've been actively working on it with state parks. You know, we just recently opened Lakeland, reopened it. It had been closed since the construction area was designated. So we are working on that. It's definitely we're trying to figure out ways, and even if we might need to build some short sections of new trail to try to get around, we're even looking at that on some of the PG&E land over there. So it's definitely on our minds. And State Parks is very actively looking at what they can do. So, but again, it's going to depend on the construction zone and the routes that the construction traffic is going to go.
So Eric, there's a part two. How can a horse trailer get to the Potter Ravine trails?
To Potter Ravine Trail. You can't. The Potter Ravine Trail is closed. On the map, it shows open. Private property. The Potter Ravine Trail, as I understand, is closed right now. The access to Potter Ravine Trail used to be from the Spillway boat ramp, and since the Spillway boat ramp is closed, there's not a way to get to it. The other way would be from the Burma Road section. So if that's an oversight in our map, we'll make that correction, but as I understand, Potter Ravine's closed.
Yep. So if the map needs to be corrected,
okay,
let's talk about that. Okay. Cash Colby, are you here? Yes. And then up next, I have a question without a name on the card.
Oh, mine's real simple. Okay. I live right on the diversion pool, like 200 feet from what's now the shipyard. So I'm sleep deprived if I sound in a stupor. But my question was mostly that we're not going to do business as usual, and my concern was with the environmental impact of everything. And yeah, I'm the pond rat. But anyway, I talked to Eric, and I'm pretty confident that in what he told me about the impact on the diversion pool and all that. But one of the things I'd like to find out is who can I talk to about some other things that have been going on at the diversion pool where DWR is not complying with the RMP settlement agreement. And I've had issues for a couple of years, and I've been getting shrugged off by DWR. And so I'd like to know who would I talk to about that. Eric, you already told me you didn't know.
Yeah, that would be catching. Are you referring to the shooting range specifically? Yeah. Okay. So the shooting range that's in the area is not one of our recreation, it's part of our recreation plan. So I think it is operated by the state parks as far as, you know, its management. DWR doesn't have much management at all, and we don't manage it as like a shooting range for the public or part of the recreation plan. So I don't have an answer for you because it's not managed by DWR.
Right. Yeah, I'm not talking about a public shooting range. I'm talking about what I'm talking about. So what I'm talking about is title-held land by DWR, and they're operating a facility there that is in violation of the RMP and doesn't comply with the park setting, and it's annoying. It's a nuisance. And so if it doesn't comply with the park setting, it doesn't comply with the RMP, and it doesn't comply with local zoning or building permit processes that the RMP demands that DWR follow, then who do I talk to from DWR about that? Because if you shrug it off to Parks and Recs, they're just going to say, we don't have to comply with an RMP. The RMP was signed by DWR.
Okay, so, well, I'll need to probably take this offline. Because like I said, we are in compliance with our recreation management plan. So RMP means recreation management plan. It's our FERC obligation for maintaining recreation facilities at the project. That site is not identified as a recreation site. So what you're saying is there's a conflict between the law enforcement use of their shooting range, causing noise and it interfering with the diversion pool.
Right.
Peaceful, you know.
Exactly.
And your house is right by there.
Man,
so.
I'm next door, so yeah, it's annoying to me too. And it's annoying to the sheriff to have to be called in the middle of the night to tell them to go stop. Or 4 in the morning or whenever they're using it. So that, you know the problem, but my issue is not, my issue is who from, and the whole reason I stayed is to find out, because I know you're taking care of the environmental issues and I'm satisfied with that and I'm confident in that, but it's who can, if I meet with the county development services and I talk to them about a zoning ordinance and how DWR is not complying with that, who from DWR can be at that meeting?
Well, I tell you what, I can talk to state parks about it. We can kind of see what the interface is there. I just don't know enough about it. It's a shooting range for law enforcement personnel, and DWR does not. We don't have law enforcement personnel. We don't operate that shooting range. So, and it's
right.
You know.
So. All right.
Yeah,
so
all right.
Obviously,
so no answer.
I haven't got your name yet, have I? But Eric certainly seems to know about it. So can you call Eric?
Touch.
Okay. All right.
Great. Thank you. Yeah.
So I have what looks like a comment from Larry. Is it Grudman? Yes. Would you like me to read this? Okay. The incident of the spillway failure and subsequent evacuation made worse by DWR's attitude and behavior received national and international negative publicity that has stigmatized this community and its environs. When the safety and security of the dam and its ancillary devices is finally assured, what programs will be undertaken and supported by DWR to erase this negative assessment and remove the stigma?
Hello. Hi, I'm Erin Mellon. I'm sorry. With the Natural Resources Agency, which is the agency over DWR, I think we're well aware of the negative national press, local press, statewide press that we've received. I think you're going to see, starting with these community meetings, that DWR is very aware of that perception and has brought on a very big communications team that I'm a part of to try to correct the record. And I'm sorry, your name again, sir?
Larry.
Look, everything I've seen in here is very local-centric, and I didn't see, I said everything I've seen at the meeting here is very local-centric, and I didn't see any plan for getting out, and we've got to get literally to the world that we're someplace safe.
Sure.
And
we are
desirable.
Yeah, understood, yeah. And we are communicating that actually to the media every day, and we will continue to do that. As far as the Oroville is open for business and is a safe place, that's a key part of our messaging, especially coming into the summer months. So we are doing everything we can to address that in the national media and international media.
And I'm asking, is there a plan? And there should be if there's a plan undertaken, there should be a plan. It should be accessible.
There is a plan, and we have actually shared the parts of it. I think it's a huge, it's like an 18-month plan. And we have shared parts with it, of that with the community, including the mayor, who I think I saw her earlier, and some of the recreation folks. So I can touch base with you directly and talk to you about some of those issues specifically, but there certainly is a plan.
Okay. So I have a card from Reed Pennell, is it? Reed, are you here? No? All right. Well, there seems to be some sentiment to go first with the people who are still here. Mike Cook, I have a card. Did you want to ask a question, Mike? Come on up.
Nine o'clock. Hang in there. Doing good. All right. So thanks, guys, for having us. I hope to. I have a question and hopefully can provide a recommendation. So my name is Mike Cook. I'm a regional director for River Partners, a nonprofit based in Chico. Our mission is to create wildlife habitat for the benefit of people and the environment. To accomplish this, we implement large-scale projects that restore riparian habitat along California's rivers. We are currently engaged in a planning effort of a multi-benefit project on the D unit of the Oroville Wildlife Area, which, as some of you may know, is owned by DWR, and I believe was used as one of the original borrow pit sites to construct the dam. The Oroville Wildlife Area comprises of 11,800 acres on both banks of the Feather River, just 10 miles downstream from Oroville Dam. Of that area, roughly 615 acres are covered in piles of rock dredge left behind by 19th century gold miners. Several studies from within my organization and many other consultants have been conducted to identify the quality of that rock and its suitability as a viable construction aggregate in order to mine the gravel to improve the conditions at Oroville Wildlife Area. So my question is DWR looking at Oroville Wildlife Area as a potential source of rock and aggregate? And if not, I seriously encourage it because the removal of this rock will provide many immense benefits to our community, including increased flood control by increasing channel capacity, savings of project costs resulting from shorter haul distances, and of course, you guys own the rock, so it's free. Increased public safety, as most of us in this community know, the Oroville Wildlife Area is plagued with a lot of crime and illegal activity, including drug manufacturing and use, fires, illegal dumping, accidental drownings, and homicide. And of course, as mentioned earlier, this would immensely improve habitat for fish and wildlife species, including waterfowl and deer for hunters, and of course threatened and endangered runs of salmon and steelhead. By lowering the floodplain would create substantial benefit in the form of rearing habitat for juvenile salmonids. Of course, removal of invasive plant species, including tree of heaven and water primrose that currently engulf the area. And then obviously it would provide economic stimulus by employing the local community. As we know, Kiewit was hired to do the repair, and they are based in Omaha, Nebraska, and who knows where their labor force will come from. So my question is, are you guys looking at Oroville Wildlife Area as a source of construction aggregate?
To answer your question about the construction materials, I don't know. I'm not sure. The source of materials, I understand, is decided upon by the construction contractor. So it's up to them to find the materials and come up with their construction package. So, but you know, I'm not sure if they were. No, they.
No, the material's going to come from the erosion that came down on the next to the spillway that was mined out of the river and is now stockpiled at Mount Spillway and along next to the spillway.
Have you guys calculated the amount of that material, and is there a shortfall for the? Because I read the BOC memos, and I think you guys are planning on filling the hole with actually RCC. So that's a lot of concrete.
Yeah, our estimate's that we will have just enough aggregate in all of that spoil to build our RCC foundation.
Great. Well, thanks for your time, but if there's a shortfall, I encourage you to look at Oroville Wildlife Area because it's got a lot of potential. Thanks, guys.
All right, thank you. So is Chris Connell here? Here you go. You want me to read it? Okay. If there is another emergency, what do we do? Lots of people don't drive. I had to unload my car to help neighbors. What do we do for our safety?
So one of the things that we have planned is, and it has to do a lot with what you saw back here, the maps and such. We have public assembly points that you can get to so that we can transport you out of the areas that are in the danger zones, okay? They're called public assembly points, and depending on where you live or where you're closest to, there's various different public assembly points that you can get to. And then what we can do is we can gather everybody that's there and get them to either a shelter, or a safe place, that kind of a thing. If you don't have transport, if you're asking what you can set that up ahead of time. A friend, public transportation, having and knowledge of where you live and where these public assembly points are will be huge, because then we can get you out of there from those areas.
How are you getting that information out to the public? I mean, a lot of people that don't have TV and stuff like that.
Right, so all the information back here are on the Sheriff's Office websites. If you have internet access, the Sheriff's Office websites, Butte County OES has the same type of thing where you can access these maps. They're interactive maps where you can put your information in, your address in, and it'll show you what zones you're located in. And it has direction on what you need to do, where you need to go, depending on where you live. We also have information where we gathered up personnel from each of the libraries in these areas. So you can go to the local library and they'd be able to help you out with everything that you see here, especially if you don't have internet access. If you have elderly friends, things like that don't have the internet, they can go to those libraries and get the same type of information.
That answer your question, Chris? Okay. So I have a question from Jonathan Foxon. Would you like your card?
What campgrounds are open?
When will the campgrounds be open?
Yeah.
Okay. Which campgrounds will be open this summer?
All the campgrounds are open right now. So none of them were closed because of the spillway incident, other than the temporary closure we had of the whole lake for a short period of time. So everything is open right now.
Okay.
Oh, and one other thing, thank you for the cupcakes. That was very nice. Back during the spillway incident, this gentleman brought us some cupcakes at the command center. Thank you.
Okay, I have is it a comment from Craig Bentley? So I'm gonna, is that something that you wanted to?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, you have a question here too. Here you go. Oh. What's your pleasure? Here's your.
I can amend this short.
All right.
Hello, my name is Craig Bentley. I'm a retired fishing guide. I worked on the Feather River here in Butte County and in Yuba and Sutter County for the last 20 years. I'm also an outdoor writer and Associated Press International member. I also am becoming a part of the NorCal Guides Association, and an update, well, I guess my cohorts have left, have told me today an update, they lost more erosion downstream from the Live Oak Spillway. Anyway, to cut to the chase, Eric, they're looking for direction on how to get assistance from the agency that's going to handle it. They think it's DWR, and you guys need to communicate with them because there's a lot of farmers down there that are really ticked off. And they want, yeah, I think if you just went with the information and gave them the information, they would probably be satisfied with it. They don't really understand the engineering aspect of having to turn the spillway off suddenly to avoid further erosion. So maybe that needs to be explained to them in a little further detail, because they're just panicking. They lost another 150 or so walnut trees per farm down there yesterday when the flow dropped from 35,000 to 12,000. And they're concerned about the sedimentation. They want to know how the riparian corridor is going to be repaired, what agency is responsible for that, and who's going to dredge the silt. I don't know a whole lot about that. I'm just conveying the message from the president of the association, James Stone, at this point. So pretty much that's it. I have a couple of personal questions. We've already talked about, as you know, Eric, and I've been in contact with you many times over the years, as well as Jason Kindop, and begin to know some other people in here. And we talked about the fishery somewhat, so you've answered my questions there. But I am concerned, like I said, about the loss of what I would call a world-class rainbow trout and brown trout fishery that we lost in the diversion pool. A lot of fish, over 20 pounds in there. Big draw from the area, from the angling community, almost worldwide. I can tell you this. I've written articles on it, drawn attention, and because some of the things you guys are doing to mitigate and get back online here and bring Oroville back up to snuff as far as a destination for sportsmen is taking place. But we need to look at that, because that one was just blooming as this happened. Really, it's just been discovered. Those fish have come of age now. Thank you. And they were mature. I think they're downriver. Some of the other folks from Fish and Wildlife that says they believe they faded downriver, and they may be back. We may have them in the river system. But as Mr. Dunn said, our concern is also for the loss of in-river fish. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm going to call this the Eric C. portion of the program. So,
Thanks, Craig. First of all, regarding the fishery, you know, I mentioned earlier, the Department of Fish and Game did do full fish plants this year from the fish hatchery. It's still too early to assess the impacts on the river as far as the riparian habitat. You know, the Central Valley, it's part of the ecosystem to have high flow events. You know, floods are good from a environmental standpoint. You know, it may not be good for people, especially people farming down in the floodplain, but you know, it is good from an environmental standpoint to have those eroding banks. It provides habitat for bank swallows and other species. There's there's a variety of reasons why floods can be a good thing for the environment. So just because you go out there and look right now, trees have been pushed around, you know, that doesn't necessarily mean that that the whole area is devastated and it's not going to grow back. It's a natural phenomenon. If Oroville Dam hadn't have been there would have been 190,000 cubic feet per second going down the Feather River Channel, and historically, prior to humans coming around and building dams, that happened every year. Those big flow events. So, from an environmental standpoint, it's still a little early, but we are going to be assessing, especially the issue of the sediment and the turbidity, because we know we had a lot more of that than normal. So that's definitely something we're going to be looking at, and we are going to be doing some assessments with the Department of Fish and Wildlife and the National Marine Fisheries Service. Regarding the fishery and the diversion pool, over the years it's had its ups and downs, just like the Lake Oroville fishery and the other areas. So, there's probably a lot of fish that came out of Lake Oroville that are down, going to be in there this year. So. The Department of Fish and Game decided several years ago, for disease purposes, they did not want to plant fish in the diversion pool or in the forebay anymore. They're afraid those fish are going to get in front of the intake to the fish hatchery and shed disease and potentially cause high losses of salmon in the hatchery. So that's the reason why they stopped stocking there. So it's unfortunate, but I will say there are some bright spots. Just in the last several years, we started a stocking program in the Thermalito Afterbay for the first time ever in the decades that have been there. So that's been a bright spot with the steelhead that we planted there. Just this year, we planted back in January, prior to the whole Spillway event, we planted about close to 10,000 Chinook salmon out in the Afterbay for the first time. First time Chinook have ever been planted out there. So that's hopefully that fishery is going to take off, and it's nice because we have a good supply of Chinook salmon eggs. So, and then Lake Oroville is going to be receiving its full stocking allotment this year, which is going to be 120 to 150,000 Chinook salmon. So, there are some bright spots out there. Hoping the impacts from this year hasn't been too bad on the salmon. Having high flows is a good thing for out migration. A lot of times you have problems with flows being too low in the river, and there being predators. The water's clear, the striped bass eat them, the birds eat them. In a year like this where you have high turbidity and high flows, those fish go right out to the ocean. They don't get stopped in the delta, so it's, in a lot of ways there can be some benefits from having these high flow events for the fish.
Thanks, Eric. All right, I have 4 speaker cards left. Hang in there. All right, Joanne Zebarth, is that right? Would you like me to read it? Okay. Let's see. Are you saying that you're going to close the spillway for construction and all the snowpack will be managed through the power plant?
Yes, so what's going to happen is snow's coming down right now. I think there's about 2 million acre-feet or something up in the mountains right now. It'll continue coming down. That's going to get lower and lower. The rain that we're expecting isn't going to be significant over the next 10 days. And so what we have is we have an estimate of the snow. We have an estimate of the snow and when it's going to come down and how it's going to come through. And
people can't hear you. So did you want to?
We all saw the estimate of the snow for May 1st, which we're all waiting to see. I don't have to talk that loud. I just would talk to him. So when we saw that what the snowpack was,
your neighbors would love to hear what you got to say there.
I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Okay, so we were waiting to see on May 1st when they put out the snowpack, and we all saw what it was yesterday. So we're supposed to be confident that that much snowpack is going to go through that hydroelectric thing that we all see pictures of what terrible shape it was in with the sandbags and the flooding and everything. Do you think that's going to handle all that water?
So the powerhouse is running, and it's running efficiently. We're able to, when all those units are up, I think that was 13,000 CFS. When we have all the units, it's 17,000 CFS. What we're actually estimating is that if we have at least 10,000, so we have a capacity of 17 plus another 4 for the river valve. If we were to run all that, we could run 22,000 CFS, but we're not going to estimate that. We're going to just estimate 10,000 CFS, and with 10,000 CFS, yes, we can manage the snow.
So once you start on the spillway, then there's no plan B. It's just
there is a plan B. No, there's always a plan B.
And how is that?
The plan B is the way that we're going to do the construction is we're going to actually start the construction in the bottom. We're going to be taking out a lot of that concrete out. We all know once you get into June, we get more and more and more confident how much snow is coming down. We have full confidence that we could do it with the powerhouse, but there's always a plan B. And the plan B would be we can't open that spillway one more time. We would have to get all the construction equipment out of there in order to do that. We don't expect that to happen. We feel very confident based on half of the capacity of the powerhouse, we could manage the flow. So that's all part of the plan, and we feel very confident that we can manage it through the powerhouse.
All right.
Okay, thank you. Okay, 3 cards left. Helen Dennis. Helen, yes. You want your card here?
No, I don't need it.
Okay.
What I'm wanting to know is why am I supposed to believe DWR? I'm not talking about you individually, but I'm talking about DWR as a whole. Because I lived here in 1966 and 67. I came back in 1970. And I have seen no evidence that you really want to make this community here grow with the population that we are supposed to have for recreation and all of that. And now most of it's been destroyed again. And so here we are starting pretty much from nil. And I want to know why it is we're supposed to believe you and trust you, because I haven't found anything yet truthful. And I want to. And Cindy, even earlier when you were talking, you said, well, we're going to release information to you as soon as possible, but, well, some of it we aren't. So why should I believe? Why should I believe that everything that's being done up there is being done up to caliber that it should be, because we can't see it. We don't know what you're doing. It's all behind closed doors, in other words. I get turned away every time I go up into Kelly Ridge to try to go to the dam. I get turned away. I can't even view it except from out by the airport. And then I can see the water shooting up in the air. How am I supposed to believe anything? And you know what? I had to fight just to get home and then not know whether I was going to be safe or not. My family who live otherwheres, they were all terrified for me, saying, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm hunkering down here at home. If I'm going to die, I'm going to die. There's nothing else I can do." That should not be. And I'm not blaming you individually. I'm blaming DWR. Why have they not been honest with us? And I know they haven't been. This dam spillway wouldn't have broken had they been really, really checking that out well. So why should we give you license again? Why should we? That's what I want to know.
Well, first of all, what can I say except I know, I am, and I hear what you're saying. You know, this, I think we had mentioned before, we've gotten off to a rocky start with the communication so far. We will acknowledge that. We are in a place to, I believe, do a lot better with that. You know, and obviously, some of us weren't here, you know, in 1966 and through some of the incidents. All we can do is move forward together. This is our commitment. We want to get this information out. I recognize and I knew that, you know, we are always going to have a little bit of dialogue around information that goes out. I'm hoping a whole heck of a lot of information goes out. There will be some that we can't put out because of security reasons and whatnot. You know, we've got this viewing platform so that you can see the progress. There's different elements, I think, to this journey we're going to take moving forward. Talk to each other, to communicate. I'm going to say build trust. I know we're not there. We may never get there. It is my hope, at least, that we can do things better as we move forward, as this DWR does move forward with this incident, with the repairs, with the communications, with the viewing, allowing you to be able to see the progress as it moves forward, meeting the commitments we've made. I can't ask you to trust us yet, but we are going to do our best, more than our best. We are going to move through this, and we're going to get to a place where we meet that #1 concern and priority, which is the public safety, so that you don't have to, you know, my deepest hope is that you don't have to hunker down and be fearful. Yep. All right.
I don't blame anybody except DWR. I should not have had that. To fight just to get to my house, and then you can't leave, you can't do anything, you have to just stay there because maybe that 35-foot wall of water is going to come at us any second. Who do we know?
What viewing platform?
Isn't that what you mentioned earlier?
Thanks, Helen. I've got 2 more cards.
Mike.
Yes.
Yeah, we will have a viewing platform. We're not sure where it is. We are working with the county and the city to provide that.
Okay, Kathy Brazil, are you here? And then next is Jerry Antonetti, and that's the last speaker card I have. You have another one, sir?
Okay, hello. I'm glad that this ran late because I was working and I thought I might have missed it. I have a few things, questions I want to put out there, and then I have some comments I want to add at the end. One of my first questions is it true that Butte County has not signed off on the 50-year relicensing? And is it true that they are being held up in the courts and it's costing them a lot of money to get them to agree? And what are the questions of why they don't want to sign off? As far as the information being available at the library, I think DWR needs to pay for the printed material available for people to pick up. Besides at the libraries, at local places where people go, whether it's a sheriff station, Walmart, wherever the people of low economic means can get the printed information. It needs to come out of their printing cost, because not everyone has internet access or the knowledge to use it. I want to know, what about the pond that was filled in without the environmental impact reports, with permits waived in order to dig up and remove the emergency debris? They filled a pond, they killed the wildlife that was in that pond. I want to know how much money is set aside. I want to hear it announced to do the repairs of the riverbeds. I suggest that they hire a company like River Partners to come in and replenish the environment. As far as always referring to the other agencies, whether it's Army Corps of Engineers or the Fish and Game and Wildlife. I live on a seasonal creek. I know that Army Corps of Engineers and Fish and Game, they don't do anything for me on that teeny little creek. So I don't know, I'm not comfortable with you referring to other agencies. It's DWR's responsibility. As a mother with children, I don't have access to the park anymore. The parks they're saying we can use, they're not where I want to go. I suggest anyone who has a Oroville license or ID has free access to the parks. And let's do a 50-year agreement on that. And I think that instead of having to go ask for that, it should be mailed to all the addresses that were asked to flee and evacuate. I think DWR has had this experience fall onto the shoulders of the sheriff, of the road crews, of now the library, of the community members, of the elderly. And DWR has had their mistakes fall onto the shoulders of a lot of people, and it's not okay. Now, I read in the headlines, they're going to blast up there. Blasting now at the Spillway. Are you kidding me? Okay, let's blast. Is this experimental repairs? The one woman said she can see it from the airport. Okay, they're going to do blasting now on the rock that's up there. And so then what, DWR can rebuild it? Shouldn't we leave some of Mother Nature's strength in the rock there? I don't quite get that.
Kathy, I know you hung in here till the end. You're over 3 minutes, so you have a lot of questions for DWR.
Let me just wrap up really quick.
Okay.
And I don't expect you to be able to answer them all right now, but I hope you're recording them, and I would like to know where this video is going to be. I'm not a fisherman. I'm not a fisherwoman. I'm a property owner. I own a home. Okay? Now the value of my home is down the toilet. Who's going to want to buy here in Oroville? And when you get a home mortgage, they don't even give you a 50-year anything. Okay, so I'm not comfortable. I want to revoke DWR's license personally, and I would like to see the community back me up on that.
So there were a few questions there that maybe the panel can respond to. No, I understand you can't speak for the county, right?
Yeah, I think I don't know, your first question was about Butte County. We can't speak for the county, so that's a question that we can refer to them and then get back to you. I'm going to go through them in order. Printed material, I hear you loud and clear. We're working on it, and that's a great suggestion. Thank you for that. I think that Eric is going to take on the next 3 questions about the pond that was filled in without environmental impact reviews or permits, and how much money is set aside for repairs to the riverbeds, and what access to parks issues are. And then we'll do the blasting, because that was, I think, your last question, and I think Dave here will take that one on.
Okay, first of all, regarding the pond, you're talking about the pond along the diversion pool that got filled in for the unloading platform, I believe. And so I spoke to that a little bit earlier. We are going to be restoring that pond when it's no longer needed for the construction process. It's just that site was necessary because of some logistical reasons. They can't get large boats under the railroad bridge there, so they had to unload at that location. So unfortunately, that was where they needed to work. So, but we are going to be excavating that material out of there when the work is done and restoring the pond. We've already been talking to the Department of Fish and Wildlife about it, and we will be doing some habitat improvements in that pond as well. So. Let's see, as far as restoring the river, again, you know, we're going to be working with our partners at the Department of Fish and Wildlife and the National Marine Fisheries Service. We need to do an assessment first and see what the impacts are, and we're going to be looking at that to see what can be done on the river. But, you know, as far as, you know, getting downstream of some of these other things that have been talked about bank sloughing and, you know, the farming that's going on the river, that's not something that I'm prepared to speak to. It's just not, it kind of goes outside of my knowledge area. And let's see, you asked a question about the county lawsuit. Yes, the county did sue the Department of Water Resources, lost the case in court over our settlement agreement. They did not sign on to the settlement agreement, but there were over 50 other entities here in the Oroville area that did, and that's where we're waiting the FERC license to be issued so we can then implement those programs.
And then as far as access to parks, we are talking to Department of Parks about waiving fees for residents. So it's on our minds and we hear you loud and clear.
Okay, so the last question, and I certainly appreciate your concern about the word blasting. Anytime you hear about blasting and you hear about blasting and dam in the same sentence, that certainly doesn't sound great, huh? But honestly, you actually do blast a lot around dams. We do it all the time, and that's actually how you excavate the rock. And so a couple of things on that. First of all, it actually already happened. And so what we were trying to do is, remember, you had those really steep slopes of rock right next to the spillway, and it's a dangerous situation for the workers. And so what we have to do is we have to, what they call, lay those slopes back so that it's safe, so that the workers can kind of get in there. And so what you try to do is you first try to do what's called mechanical removal. You try to get the big excavators in there and you try to remove that rock. But sometimes the rocks, it's not strong enough to be there, yet it's too strong to actually rip out. And so what we do is what's called controlled blasting. And so we actually had to get a permit through the Sheriff's Office. We did that back in, I think it was March. There's actually a plan to actually do that. You actually leave usually a cover of soil over it so that you can't even hear the blast. And it's kind of not as exciting as you may think. So when you hear the word blasting, it's kind of poof. You don't hear it's really about that loud poof, and you don't even see much dust kind of come up. So it's not really that exciting. So again, we do it all the time. Certainly appreciate the concern. Blasting and dam, that sounds a little scary, but that's actually how we excavate rock. It's very typical when we actually construct dams and do things with dams. So it's already been done. I'm not sure whether there's any more plans for additional blasting. As far as I know right now, I think that's it. We just had to excavate that rock out of there.
Okay, thanks, Dave. So Jerry Antonetti, are you here? Here you are. And after Jerry, I have Lee, and that would be the last speaker card. You need that?
My name, once again, is Jerry Antonetti. I'm a Oroville resident. I'm a 45-year retired transportation engineer, but I had the privilege of working 10 years for Water Resources on the thermal heater power plant out here. And matter of fact, I was the final checkout inspector. So I'm very familiar with the project up here and what's going on. And my major concern, and I've had an opportunity to talk to some of your able staff back here in the back, and they kind of give me some insight as to what you're thinking, but I don't think you're looking at it strongly enough. Being a transportation engineer, the surface streets in Oroville, city, county, they're just not designed to highway standards. It's 2/10 asphalt, 6/10 AB on there, and they're just going to hell. We'll be losing Volkswagens in them. And looking at your map in the far back corner back there of how you plan to access the Spillway area, in particular the Burma Road, that's a joke, because getting heavy equipment, rebar, plywood, nails, the whole contingent of construction materials that you're going to need for this plant up here, you're going to have to bring in by truck, surface streets, and the only access that you have is Nelson Avenue, and that's a mess out there with those interchanges. Caltrans didn't do any favors when they built those interchanges out there, but you're going by Highway Patrol Office, Home Depot, Cal Fire, and then you're going through a ridiculous little traffic circle there that the city built that 18-wheelers can't go through, and it's just a mess. So now, my suggestion, the old railroad used to go parallel with the river on the south side and up the Feather River Canyon. When they built the dam, needless to say, they inundated the railroad and put a shoe fly above your diversion dam and continue with it on up the canyon. You can come off that shoe fly, the railroad grade is still there, the tunnel where them two trains met head on is around the corner, and come down on the south side of the river to a marshalling area below the spillway, build you a Bailey Bridge type situation with those flexiform barges that you had or whatever, to where you can move them later on if you had to or whatever, and then use the old railroad roundhouse area that's all cleared and use that for a marshalling yard. So now whenever you need truck traffic to come in to bring something, you can come off of Ophir Road, Marysville Baggett Road, access the old railroad roundhouse area, use rail lines up to the dam, offload it, and do your thing. If you need equipment from Seattle, San Francisco, whatever, bring it in by rail. Don't bring it in by truck. And it would ease the situation up here as far as our local streets and roads. You're going to have a bill you can't jump over when the county sues you guys to repair this system up here. You've already got, God only knows how much in arrears. Canyon Drive up there, one of the engineers used to work for me, rebuilt it up there at the, I think it's $1.5 million for a 1.5 mile road, for Pete's sake, just because they're losing Volkswagens in it. So really consider that. Please consider that. I brought this up with the Board of Supervisors, and I've got my local supervisor, Bill Conley, and Doug Teeter up there. They're saying, yeah, that just screams. That just makes sense. And then the second thing I want to bring up is...
Okay, so how much longer you got? Because we're over 3 minutes.
Just enough to shoot a couple of arrows.
All right.
And then a couple of kudos. Thermalito power.
Well, we'll hang around for the kudos. So
since I'm the last guy here.
Well, you got one more.
All
He's
right.
waiting patiently.
Leave me alone, and I'll get done with it. Thermalito power plant. That's my baby. I mean, that was the height of my engineering career. And I was at the start of it, and I was at the finish of it. And when I heard that thing caught on fire on Thanksgiving in 2012, and it's still down. And it's another 2 years before it's operating. And I don't understand that. That's enough, 115 megawatt, that's enough electrical capacity to power the city of San Francisco. The lost revenue from the fact that this thing isn't generating blows me away. And the simple fact that it was an unmanned facility. I don't know what an operator costs nowadays, what, $80,000 a year, have two of them out there going around checking dials and gauges and all that stuff. That's what they were doing when we first built the thing, and it was brand new. They probably could have put that fire out. But now, because Jerry Brown is penny pinching, he wants to build a bullet train, so he's removing.
So is this a comment or a question? I'm giving you a long leash here.
Because you don't have maintenance money to do what you should be doing up here. And that should not have happened. So Thermalito power plant, let's get that thing back online. And you also have another unit down at Oroville, unit number 1, that's down, and I'm understanding that's 2 more years before that's up. So there's a situation. And a question that this gentleman over here can answer me, can you operate both the diversion, the 5500 CFS valves at the bottom and the power plant at the same time through those 2 diversion tunnels and not have backwater flood you out? The tail race is too high. Can you do it?
We can operate the power plant and the river valves at the same time. We do have limiting capacity, so what our top elevation is 227 when we would have to slow down, because we have to have that airspace up on the top of the diversion tunnel.
Well, you're just barely able to do it.
But we have the limiting factors that we were paying
Only because you have 5 units going now instead of 6.
Why do we? We were doing preventative maintenance on Unit 1 currently, and that was planned before all of this.
So it's operating?
It's not operating.
Okay,
we're
that's
doing
what I
the
said.
maintenance.
You've only got 5 units.
We only have 5 units, yes.
All right.
Okay.
But Unit 1 will be back in January, so then we will have all 6 units available.
So I'd like to get some kind of an answer about this railroad proposal. People look into that?
I just wanted to address your comment about Thermalito. Understood, and I don't have to tell you what a complicated repair job that is. This is not the group that's obviously working on that project, but if we can get your contact information, we could probably get you in touch with the person for that. And I'll pass it to Cindy about roads.
Christy, I'll take this one. We are definitely going to take your railroad road into consideration. We have been looking at that, and I'm looking back at my roads task force leader there, and we have been talking about that.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you for the suggestion.
Oh, and my compliments to you. I don't envy your job, and I'm glad you're here having this public hearing, and a special shout out to our sheriff that took care of this fiasco.
Thank you. All right, Lee, you need this?
I don't need that.
You don't need it, okay.
I find this probably one of the most interesting discussions I've ever been involved in. Having a dam right next to you is fairly new to me because I've only been here about 3 or 4 years, but going through that emergency evacuation was something maybe you think about it once or twice in your life, but you never figure it's going to happen. And I think it was a shock for all of us. And then the trust issue is still a main issue. Having said that, your PR effort is going to be, I think, a very important effort. And segueing into that, I think, is economically helping this community with information on the contractors that are being given and the contracts, and having local employment being added to those efforts and supported by your agencies as a benefit to the community. So when these efforts begin, there are a list of, here are the contractors, here maybe even be a list of jobs that are available to get this project done, because it's a massive effort. I would think the community should be involved. And I think it would be something that PR-wise, I talked to Mary on your staff earlier, and I think this is something that the community would really say, hey, you are behind us. I know you say you're behind us, but hey, let's face it, the economic condition of I think most of the communities in this area has been impacted by this. You can't get away from it. So why don't you help us out? Give us a list of those contractors. I see the schedule over here, but I can't get a copy of it by anybody. Can we get a copy of that? Yes, I see it's on the board up there, but I think if we had a copy of that, we'd have an idea of what's supposed to be planned. And I would like to personally, I'm an ex-engineering contractor, and I see and I know the massive effort. The gentleman that was just talking, I mean, he's been involved with it, so he knows too. The massive effort to move millions and millions of yards of concrete and soil and everything else, and compact it and do all this, it's huge, and you can't do it overnight. So I think the community for the next 3 or 4 years could probably benefit from it economically if you'll kind of give us some ideas to be employed.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Actually, Oroville.spillway@kiewit.com, Kiewit. They're our main contractor for the recovery effort, and that's where they're taking employment requests and where they're going to be communicating. It's not any of those.
This is DWR.
It's a different one specifically managed by the construction company. I can, actually, this woman right here, Marianne, will help you out. And actually, as far as PR efforts go, we have 2 public information officer positions that are open for up here in Oroville for long-term positions as we try to both address the communications issues that we've had since the incident and make sure that we develop a relationship with the community going forward. So if you have recommendations, we are looking for great people to fill those roles.
All right, thanks, Aaron. Yes.
How do you follow up with the individual people to contact them or follow up on it? Maybe the answer they gave?
How do you follow up with the people here about the answers they gave? That's a good question.
You can email that, oroville@water.ca.gov. You can call us at 1-800-248-7026. We are also going to be posting this on YouTube, and we are going to be posting the questions and answers that we couldn't answer tonight. I think we'll direct the question to the best person available to answer it.
Okay. I did get, I'm sorry, a speaker card. Yes, is this, I'm not sure, this is yours?
Right, I just wanted to.
And you're Sharon?
I'm Sharon.
Sharon, okay.
Yes.
All right.
So I have a comment. You know, the drone stuff is really about the only way we've had any kind of an idea what's going on. And at first, there was a lot of drone coverage and a lot of DWR describing and close-ups and showing different things, but it seems like that's pretty well dissipated, and yet it seems to me that that is one of the major, best ways of letting us know that this is the site to go to, and every week we will have an update showing you what we did, what we're doing, how it's going, described by the guys who know what's happening. That would give me, as a member of this community, an idea that I'm not just left out guessing. So.
Yeah, absolutely, understood. And actually, we have our video guys back here, the 2 guys behind the camera with the big headphones who aren't paying attention to me. Hey, guys. They're actually have collected over 500 hours of video footage, those 2 guys. And they are still doing that. And we actually just launched a new website for the Oroville Spillway that maybe is organized in a slightly better way so you can access that information. One whole section is photos and videos, and that gets updated on a daily basis.
So that needs to be published regularly and available to the library so that we know when to look for new things. And anyway.
I also just want to follow up that also on our main website we have links to the cameras. There are live cameras on the spillway as well.
So I don't have any more speaker cards.